Welcome, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. And never forget, wizards are never late nor early. They always arrive right on time. Don't ever forget it. But I'm the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect and the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Today, there's actually a new Savannah Guthrie video with the rest of her family, too. So Cameron and her sister Anne, we're going to go over that. It's very short, but we'll play that first. Brian Entin's got another new short, but he has no longer new videos as of this second. Ashleigh Banfied, she's got a video to go over. And Bruce Rivers, the criminal guy, he's got something coming up. Spiffy. You sound like Jimmy Stewart from Harvey the Rabbit. Spiffed. So let's wait for some people to come in here. I mean, TMZ and Harvey Levin, they have also said that they think this new ransom note is actually legit, is what they're saying. I don't know if I agree. I'm not sure yet. But I would also like to know, who is the person at the congregation that knew Nancy wasn't there when there's no way to know if she was online or not? Is there something they're not telling us with that? Is there a live stream they didn't tell us about where you can live chat? They didn't say that. But also remember this. The sheriff and friends, or now the FBI and friends, they're not telling us everything, more than likely. There's things that they know that they probably don't want us to know because they don't want to spoil the case. And this is a very unique case in the fact that Nancy could still be alive. And if you think, this kind of compare this to the Elizabeth Smart case here too. She was gone for 9 months with a dude that the family had hired to help them out with odds and ends around the house. He was married too, believe it or not. He had his own version of, what's her name? Epstein's wife, Ghislaine. So they did that and she came back alive 9 months later. People weren't expecting that, but it happened. What are the differences? She was a teenager. Nancy Guthrie's 84 with a health condition. So it's not looking good for Nancy. Each passing day that goes by, it's not looking good. But I do believe in miracles as well. I believe in miracles as well. I think you never know what can happen. I can be surprised. I don't put the odds at very high that she's going to make it back in one piece, but those odds are not at zero. Remember that. Candy, how are you? I'm surprised they are saying that it's a hoax. Don't understand that. The ransom? Bruce Rivers, he's a criminal guy. I like him. He's got a good vibe. And Joseph, it very well might be the son-in-law. I'm certainly not ruling that out. That was Ashleigh Banfield's first suggestion, that he was the suspect because her source in law enforcement said so. The sheriff contradicts it, but again, that doesn't mean it's not true. But we'll see. We'll see as it unfolds here. And just because he's a suspect, though, doesn't necessarily mean he's guilty either. Like, just because you're a suspect doesn't mean you're guilty. But we will see. Heather, how are you? Tim, let's hope she's alive. I hope so. I hope so. Hey there, caregiver. From across the pond of you, Kat. From across the pond. But let's see. Let's see what Savannah and family has to say here. Oh.
Received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay. We received your message, and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
So that was it. Very short, sweet, and to the point. Savannah looks a little more collected today, not as devastated. Not that she's still not devastated, but they said they'll pay. So, but I'm sure they have instructions, do not pay a dime until there's a proof of life. That's what I would say. So let's move on from this here. Not Megyn Kelly, don't worry.
Taped agents on top of.
Actually, before I play this, I want to play the short from Brian Entin first. Oh, this is actually fresh off the press here, apparently.
Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. Really, really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. Big news in the search for Nancy Guthrie. I'm outside her house right now in Tucson, but there is now a new video that Savannah Guthrie has just released, sitting with her sister and brother again, where she says this time, "We will pay," and she is addressing the alleged abductors. Listen to this.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us, and we will pay.
Just awful. I mean, I don't know how that doesn't just make anyone feel heartbroken for the Guthrie family and what they are going through right now. I'm going to get in the car. I'm going to call Maureen O'Connell and get her take on this new video that just came out. Okay, so I have Maureen O'Connell, a retired FBI agent and, friend of the show on the phone right now, because this just happened with the...
On the phone, the bat phone with Maureen O'Connell, former FBI agent. Danielle, if you're out there, here she is. Here's your girl. 18.
Yeah, with the new video coming in. So, Maureen, what stands out to you here?
Well, it's a last-ditch effort to, bring her mom back if her mom is in fact alive. I mean, they have to. They're just I don't want to say they're grasping for straws, but you can hear the desperation in their voice. You can see it in their faces. These people are crushed, and the most important person in their life is God knows where, with God knows whom. So they're, they're just letting them know we're going to cough up the money. They need them to, I don't know. I mean, this is brand new, and I think this is just a last-ditch effort on everyone's part to either find out who this person is or bring her mother home.
When she says we received your message and we understand, I guess we don't know if that's the message from yesterday that we've reported on that went to the TV station, or if there's a new message that we just don't know about.
Yeah, the message is, get me the money. I'm not talking to you anymore, or else.
Right.
I'm guessing. And I can say that I would never give money to anyone when I didn't have proof of life, but I can tell you that families often want to, because especially if they're, backed into a corner like this. What other option do they really feel that they have? None.
Well, and I just think about if it was my mom and, I had the money, and we don't know how much it is, but I think I would just pay. I mean, I know what you're saying from an FBI perspective, but even if there's that, whatever the chances are, like, how could you not think I'm just going to pay?
Right.
I mean, but why are you going to pay unless there's a proof of life? I mean, that's what I would be waiting for. You got to have some kind of proof of life before you dish out that kind of money. The only chess move I could think is, well, you pay and then you try to find where the money went and you find them that way. Maybe. But what do you think, Chad? I don't know.
But also, this is where, let cooler heads prevail comes in. When you have, has it ever happened where someone got paid without proof of life and got their loved one returned to them? My guess is no. What incentive do they have to give her back? Once they got their money, they got their money.
Right.
They want no further exposure. Dropping her off someplace or at a hospital or fire station or whatever, they're going to be on camera. Their vehicle, then they're toast, and they know that.
But the investigation would still continue, even if, let's say, they paid and nothing happens. It's not over, right? I mean, there's still a way they could find out who they paid and try to track it, right? Or is the money just gone?
It would never end at that point, because, Brian, there are people out there that perpetrated this crime, whoever these people are, and however close or far they are from the family. We don't know that right now. But What I do know is that their behavior before this happened will be markedly different than their behavior after this event. I mean, do they have her in someone's house? Is she still alive? If they do have her and she's still alive, these people are buying food they never bought before, possibly looking for medication, possibly bandages, who knows? Their life pattern will have changed dramatically.
And overall, this whole thing's just so ridiculous to me. Of all the things to do and try, this is what you're going to do? For revenge, money, or what? This is your plan, to kidnap an 84-year-old woman and hope for ransom? Or this is your revenge against Savannah or her brother? Like, for what? I'm just having trouble figuring out the pieces of this one. Like, because if you're doing something for money, you would think you'd do something with a higher percentage success rate. This is a very low success rate. Now, as we talked about yesterday, there are people that get ransoms and do get away. Now, of course, law enforcement doesn't want you to know that, because they want you to think if you ever even try something like this or even dream of it, you better wake up and apologize, and you're not going to get away with it. But you never know. You never know.
And that's what we have to ask the public to look for. Do you have a neighbor who's all of a sudden not making eye contact? You said hi to him 2 times, 3 days in a row. He looks a wreck. He won't make eye contact with me, or he's always in a rush when he normally talks my ear off. Strange behavior like that, this post-incident behavior is very, very telling.
Yeah, people need to be on the lookout. Well, thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Maureen. I just wanted to get you on the phone real quick, just to kind of react to this video.
All right.
I know you were Costco shopping, so thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right, thanks.
All right, bye. All right, appreciate Maureen for hopping on. And I'm going to have more with Maureen in a second. But first, I want to show you also something significant. What President Trump said last night, which would have been Friday night, about the progress of the investigation. I don't know how that plays into this new Savannah Guthrie interview, but it's pretty clear that something has been going on behind the scenes. Listen to what President Trump said.
And this is what we went over last night, by the way. He just read it. Brian Entin read what Trump said, but this is what Trump said.
Savannah Guthrie's family, the full support of federal law enforcement. FBI is now...
I'll give you a little statement. I think we're doing very well on that regard. You're probably surprised to hear that. I think we're doing very well. Very well, meaning we have some clues, I think, that are very strong. And I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon.
Is this a nationwide search? Is this a search going to Mexico?
I'm not talking about a search. I'm talking about a solution.
Not talking about a search, talking about a solution.
We have some things I think that will maybe come out reasonably soon from DOJ or FBI or whoever that could be
Suspect?
Yeah, could be definitive.
So a
lot's taken place in the last couple of hours. A lot of things have happened with regard to that horrible situation in the last couple of hours.
So again, it's just interesting when you sort of put all of this together. The FBI showing up back at the house, the President Trump video last night and what he had to say about things progressing, possible suspect, and now the Savannah Guthrie video. It's pretty obvious there are things happening behind the scenes. I want to go now to earlier I interviewed Maureen and Jeff, both retired FBI agents. We talked more about the what happened at the house with them looking for evidence, what they might be looking for, and kind of bigger picture where the investigation goes from here.
Also, other updates here. So Nancy Guthrie's car has been towed from the garage. That's an update. Ann's car had been impounded a couple days ago. That's not really an update, just another reminder. Agents have gone to Ann's house, but didn't go inside. Agents gone back to Nancy's house, and they basically closed down the crime scene again because local law enforcement said, oh yeah, you're good. And then federal law enforcement came in there and said, no, you're not good. You actually probably contaminated the crime scene here. So we're going to shut this back down. And actually, you need to get off the street. So get the hell out of here. So the federal agents were probably kind of annoyed with the local law enforcement there. But those are the updates. As far as we know, there was no arrests besides the fake ransom note. The bond for that guy in the fake ransom note was $20,000. You got to pay 10%. So you only had to pay $2,000. That seems pretty low to me, but no other developments.
I'm joined now by Maureen O'Connell and Jeff Bennett, both retired FBI agents. It's nice to see you both. We have a lot to talk about. There's been a lot that's happened sort of over the last 24 hours. The first thing I've been dying to ask you both about, and that I was thinking about when I went to bed and even when I woke up, is these comments by President Trump on Air Force One. And I'm just going to read them again. He said, we have some clues that I think are very strong, and I think we could have some answers coming up fairly soon. The reporter said, is this a nationwide search? Is this a search going to Mexico? And he said, no, I'm not talking about a search. I'm talking about a solution. We have some things that I think will maybe come out reasonably soon from DOJ or FBI or whoever that could be. And then the reporter said, a suspect? And President Trump said, yeah, could be definitive. What do you make?
So Trump says could be definitive. He says the DOJ and the FBI said so. Make of that what you want.
Of that, Maureen?
Not necessarily helpful to the investigation.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure they're not
Leave it to Maureen to cut through the BS. I love it.
pleased. But just in terms of when he said a solution, do you get the sense that they're closing in on someone?
Yes, but I always got that sense whenever, because when you looked at the response to this crime initially from the sheriff's department, they thought it was a missing persons case, which is reasonable because they probably have that. That's probably the number one thing that they're doing out there is, lost animals and missing persons cases. So when they went in there, yeah, with a couple of people. But when you saw yesterday, like I texted you and I said, here comes the cavalry. When you see that cavalry roll into town, you can get goosebumps. And Jeff will confirm this.
And what does she mean by the cavalry? She means the FBI. She means the federal law enforcement coming in for reinforcements because the local law enforcement kind of dropped the ball.
You have a group of 10-pound brains that you feel almost as if it's never been assembled like that before. You've got these great forensic. It's essentially the FBI's forensic lab in a mobile unit with the FBI ERT team and hostage negotiators, profiler, you name it. I mean, when you come in with all this, it really does it drops the pressure level because you realize A, it's not all on your shoulders. B, everybody here is a complete professional. They all know what they're doing and they're all hyper vigilant and hyper focused on what needs to be done and in what order. And it's just unbelievable to be part of. Wouldn't you say,
Yeah.
Jeff?
Yeah,
I would agree.
We saw them all come in. I saw like you said, the cavalry. I mean, all the evidence fans, they all came in last night. They were here into the night, and now I'm outside the house now, and it's cleared. They've left. But is there an issue, Jeff, with that happening 6 days in?
Well, and I'll answer that question real quick about President Trump making a comment. Two things about that. You always want to coordinate any sort of statement because it can benefit the investigation as long as it's coordinated. There's a term we use called tickle the wire. If there is some sort of technical monitoring going on, you can somehow utilize some sort of statement, whether it's from President Trump or some sort of management behind a podium. You can sort of use that to generate activity on maybe a phone that you're up on.
And this guy is a friend of Maureen's. I think he's also a former FBI agent. I think his name is Jeff. And if Maureen endorses him, I endorse him.
The second thing is, there's no way, in my opinion, this event went as planned for the bad guys. This can't be what they were looking to do. So I have to imagine they are wherever they're at, looking at each other, and there's no honor among thieves. They've got to be looking at each other. Maybe they heard President Trump's statement going, maybe they're thinking to them.
Let's see here. Hot tamales, thank you very much. Tip the bartender, DJ Jazzy Jared. I love it. Stickers, super chats, they're all amazing. Likes are free. I like those too.
Themselves, well, shoot, the good guys are coming. The FBI always gets their man, and maybe the first person to drop a dime maybe gets some consideration for prosecution, because today they're suspects, but tomorrow they're defendants. It's inevitable. This is not going to go unsolved. It will get solved. It's the FBI doesn't forget, so it's just a matter of time.
The other thing they might be considering. Well,
I just want to say, Maureen, and I want to hear what you think about this. Like, I keep thinking about the word solution. Like, we may have a solution. Like, the first thing that popped in my mind is like, is that money? Like, we're going to work on a deal to pay the ransom, or like.
And if you're Trump, that's probably how your brain is thinking. You're thinking, let's make a deal. I kind of want a victory right now. I'm going to do something that's going to make me look good. Oh, and if I can find a way to return Nancy Guthrie home safely, why not? He'll take it.
The word solution to me, like, what do you think that means?
Well, maybe it's a solution to the, and this would be a better question for Jeff, because he may be talking about how to get that VPN, right, Jeff? Like that's the problem everyone's dealing with, is that VPN.
Right. And Brian, if maybe for your viewers, I could explain very briefly how an IP address works, because there's a lot of talk of these KFR, kidnap for ransom messages coming in, and quite simply, they are being, from what I understand, they're being communicated through email, and so that email is coming in through an IP address. And for the viewers, an IP address is quite simply a bridge. It's a bridge from a user to an endpoint. So an IP address is owned by a company, and so as the FBI, if I can determine where that bridge is and who owns that bridge, I can go to that company and I could say, hey, who's on the other side of that bridge? But the problem with a VPN is it's not just one bridge that I have to figure out. It's 1,000 bridges. So I have to cross one bridge and then I have to cross 1,000 other bridges. So it's not as simple as it sounds. Using a VPN, using masked routing is extraordinarily difficult. I'm sure they're working on it. The quickest way is to figure out what company that is being utilized to mask the IP address. Go to that.
And you can't forget, some of these tech guys, if they know tech, they know more than a lot of the law enforcement and the government, honestly. And that's something they don't want you to know either. But I also think it's true. If you know someone who like really knows privacy and crypto and VPNs, they can do a lot of shady stuff. Now, granted, you can do shady stuff with cash too, right? But it's not necessarily Bitcoin. It's the other things that you can do with it that can become more of an issue. And you can wreak some havoc.
That company. Hopefully it's a domestic company. If it's overseas, we can't necessarily force our hand. With a case this big, Maybe there's some pressure that the big government can put on them. Hopefully.
Well, and just one thing we found out yesterday. So one of the local TV stations that received the first note and then the second note, their news director said the notes didn't come in through an email per se. They have like a form on their website where you can submit news tips. So you fill out your name, you fill out the subject, you fill out, you know what I mean? And then it's like a form on the website. That's what was filled out. Would they still be able to trace it even though it was sent in that way?
Yeah, so that's still going to use an IP address. So when the user hits send, it establishes a bridge from that computer to its destination, and that's that bridge I'm talking about. But when they're using a VPN or whatever sort of system they're using to obscure their location, instead of going from their locations to the destination over one bridge, over one IP address, it's now jumping through thousands or millions of bridges, which is what is creating the challenge for the FBI to track back on and get to the destination or get to the origination point. And I'll tell you this real quick. I've worked hundreds of homicides where we've used IP addresses to find homicide suspects, because here's what they do. Homicide suspects on the run, drops their phone, gets up on the Instagram, makes contact with whomever. I monitor their Instagram, IP address comes up. I go to T-Mobile. I say, hey, T-Mobile, what device is using this IP address? T-Mobile provides me the new number that I didn't have before. I start pinging that new phone. Well, that's the suspect's new phone. Now I track that phone. There the suspect is. It's that simple. But if it's an obfuscated or a masked IP address, then it becomes very difficult.
Jeff, can you?
And again, this is why I think these are tech savvy people, because it seems like a masked IP address. And this is tough. I mean, a lot of digital crimes, cyber crimes, they go unsolved. Honestly, people get scammed and exploited all the time online, and it's really difficult to solve them.
Explain the difference between an anonymizer and a VPN, because a lot of people are using both those terms, mainly anonymizer of the IP address.
And I think didn't they use it? The news director, I think, said they used something to conceal the address.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about, Maureen? What are you saying, anonymizer? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and quite frankly, I don't know the difference. My job was, in my job, the suspects that I chased weren't necessarily that sophisticated. They were mostly just murder suspects that were that killed each other randomly, mostly gang members. So it wasn't nearly this sophisticated. This is a unique case. This is a whodunit with a fact pattern that doesn't match anything that I've seen before. This matches more, quite frankly, of a no-body homicide than of a KFR. But nobody wants to say that.
So it sounds like Jeff here, he doesn't think that the son-in-law truly is a suspect, because to me, that wouldn't be an old stone cold whodunit. That's actually, no, we think it's probably in the family here, but it sounds like he doesn't think that.
Because there's been no proof of life. Proof of life is what we would assume that's the critical part of a KFR, and there's been no proof of life.
Right.
Maureen, what do you think about the car being towed late last night? Because I was out here, and it's the same car that was in Nancy's garage, a blue Subaru.
A number of things. Number one, FBI ERT has a different set of protocols when it comes to crime scene management and everything like that than other entities might. Not so much here in California. I know we train together all the time. If you work in a city or a state or an area where law enforcement all works together beautifully, you'll find that they all tend to sort of follow what are the best practices of each organization. So ERT could have found some blood. Another thing is, on the original warrant, it may have said the the residence, the curtilage, any vehicles or outbuildings. It may have said all that. And then the whoever came in, like maybe when the FBI came in and said, wait a minute, it says all the vehicles. Have we processed all the vehicles? And they said, no, we haven't really processed it, but we don't know if it had anything to do with anything. So that at that point, the Bureau was like, you know what, it's in the warrant. It's something we generally do, and we would. And so we're going to hook that thing up and take it to a secured location. So,
And that's smart by the FBI, right? You don't want to leave any stones unturned. If you can do something like put Nancy's car and tow it to see what's there, why not? Why not at this point? You don't want any contaminated crime scenes. You don't want Joe Schmo public stumbling around and messing things up. So I agree with what federal law enforcement did. Also, I want Brian to ask Maureen what he makes of the person that called and said that Nancy wasn't at church. I hope Brian asked her that.
we can then, because when you're an ERT team member and you're processing a vehicle, it's you find yourself spending a lot of time. Like, for example, when we did that big case with Rampart Division, Jeff, I was behind the garage there in our parking structure where we would bring cars in, and I worked on that trunk, I want to say, for about 4 hours just in the trunk. So
Right.
if anybody could see me doing that, they would be like, whoa, what is she doing? Why is she only in the trunk? And
All right. Brian Entin just tweeted 43 seconds ago. Law enforcement appeared to be at Annie Guthrie's house. Camera flashes are coming from inside windows. Will upload video soon. 53 seconds ago.
we did
Right.
everything else. We're going to tape the headliners. We're going to do everything else. But there are very often times, you can in that instance, I was testing for cocaine and I found it. And in other instances, you're testing for blood, and there's obviously a myriad of different ways to do that. And so that's what they're going to be looking for. And if in fact they found the blood droplets, they may think, wow, did the perpetrator actually use Nancy's car? And then no, they couldn't have returned it later because it would have shown that on the app. But the whole thing about Nancy's car now is starting to get my wheels spinning.
Right. Well,
But it
and
could have
I'll-
just been them covering all their bases. You think it might not be that significant? Is that what you were kind of saying?
yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh no, I was gonna reiterate what you're about to say, Maureen. I'll just add to that. I mean, it's just, you do a more thorough job if you grab it, take it to a secure location, and go, soup to nuts right from a controlled environment. And another thing to add on that is, I know the news is making a big deal about a couple agents walking around on the roof. You don't start to wash your car in your driveway from the middle down. You start from the top, and that's all they're doing. These agents being on the roof is not that big a deal. It's just the FBI does a thorough job. We're going to start on the roof, and we're going to work our way down. We're going to do the entire thing. I've had cases where our local lab, a very competent LA Sheriff's Lab or LAPD lab, very good. They have missed things. We sent stuff back to the FBI lab, and they use maybe a more advanced technique or maybe a different technique, and they've been able to pull prints on things or items that our local lab hasn't. So we use really breaking advanced techniques that maybe some other
So again, these federal agents, they keep on going to Ann's house. Why are they going to Ann's house? They were there yesterday. They're back again today. There's cameras flashing on the inside. What could this possibly mean? I don't know. Does that mean there is an arrest? Does that mean there's news about Nancy? What do you think?
departments don't have access to.
Like the Polly Klaus, do you remember Polly Klaus, that young girl that was killed up in
Yeah.
Petaluma? Her, that was, Brian, that was one of the first big cases where I always say forensic for fluorescent. Magnetic fluorescent powder was used. And the reason that powder was even developed, this magnetic and fluorescent powder, was to be used on porous surfaces like a rock or asphalt or wood or something like that, because those surfaces, or even a really textured dashboard in a vehicle, those surfaces are very difficult to develop a really good fingerprint on. But when you use this technique with this powder, you could do that. So my point is this: when the FBI gets, or it's like we're like the FDA to a certain extent when it comes to a lot of forensic stuff. When we start using it, other entities all over the country will start using it. So we'll have access to things right now that other people don't have access to, only because we have that National Academy, which I'm sure you don't know anything about, but that's where law enforcement officers from all over the world come to learn things. So it's a.
And again, didn't we learn also that Savannah is staying with Anne? Did we not learn that? And if that's the case, maybe the brother Cameron's there too. And this is just how the agents are communicating with them in person, maybe. That's just speculation. That's not a fact. But that's maybe what I would speculate.
Perfect spot to showcase what's on the horizon or what's here right now. That's what this lab and that's what the CRT team is bringing to this crime scene.
And you texted me last night, Maureen. You said, I think, what did you say? They'll be there 6 to 8 hours. That's what you said, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were. I mean, I kind of expected to come back today and see some crime scene tape. So, but they did their thing and they're gone. I mean, are you surprised they didn't keep it secured at all? Because it's just back to no one's here again.
I know everyone's saying we should lock it down until the trial or whatever. We don't do that as a general practice, so I don't know why we should do it here. I'm a big believer in what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If you're doing it for one, we should do it for all, or the opposite. Now, when our protocols are tight, our protocols are very strict, and we go through, like, for example, when we showed up, if we were to show up on that scene and it was a missing persons case, which is, I think that's what happened initially. It's a missing persons case. They work them all the time. It's an elderly lady. She's 84. She's meandering out, in the backyard. We have to find her because it's hot out. And then it transitioned. Then they saw the blood. The reason I think they didn't see the blood initially is because the family always enters through the garage, because they probably have clickers to mom's house in their cars. And they always go in and out through the garage. Now, when the sheriff's deputies show up and they say, come in through the garage, they might come in through the garage, but they're going to look around a little bit first. And that's when they saw the blood. I think they were the first ones to see the blood, weren't they, Brian? The sheriff's deputies?
Yeah, from what I understand. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably why, because, it's kind of like in some houses, the family only uses the side door or the back door. In this case, I think it was the access was through the garage.
So, but again, that blood was in the front step. I mean, how difficult is it to see that? They should have seen that within the first couple hours, if not first hour.
So once they saw that, I would have shut that place down right then. That would have been crime scene tape, and it would have been a pretty big crime scene at that point, because Jeff and I both know it's hard to move bodies. It's very difficult. It's very, even if they're alive, if they have mobility issues, it's difficult. It's slow. It's clunky. So
elaborate on that a little bit. I mean, and I don't want to get too. I hope she's alive, but just when you say it's difficult to move bodies,
it's very difficult to move bodies. That's why when we were looking for bodies, we did a lot of searches in the Angeles National Forest and all over the desert. We were in Riverside quite a bit. We would train out in the desert. We had a team of forensic anthropologists that would work with our team. We always sought out members of academia in the science to teach us things in the wild. Like, for example, we studied animal activity on human remains extensively, and it was just fascinating. And one of the main takeaways is something like coyotes and all those type of animals. They will take parts of the body to the highest point in the area so they can have higher ground and look and see if anyone's coming to take what they.
Interesting. So coyotes will take human remains and they'll take them to the highest point, so that they can try to observe anyone who's trying to steal, quote unquote, their food, as crude as that sounds. But that's good to know. I mean, I don't know what other scavengers would be out there. Maybe other coyotes, perhaps.
What they have to eat. We also had to break up scat, which is the defecation of all these animals. We had to break up every pile of that we came across. And when I tell you that there's a lot of shit in the desert, brother, I'm not kidding. And we would have to break it up because that's where you would find the teeth and the hair. And, you know, and if you found teeth and hair, the forensic anthropologists were out there with us because we used to train with them, but then we would start bringing them out when we got calls out there because it's just, you know, I told you I love to learn and I just never, ever stopped learning on that team. It was just phenomenal. And we could call in world-class experts. Would you mind coming out here and, you know, helping us when we pull up, when we're pulling bones? Because you're going to be out in the desert. You're going to find a lot of bones.
When you mention animals, some people, the locals here, and again, I hate to like talk about this because it's kind of just gruesome, but they were like, look out for the vultures. They're like, you know, a couple days after there's a body out there, if there is a body, we're going to see the vultures circling.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Jeff, though?
I mean, and that's true. But I doubt, though, they're just going to leave a body on the surface like that to be found so quickly. I mean, don't you think they would at the very least bury it to make it less likely to be found? Because again, if there's no body, it makes everything much more difficult. And let's face it also, if it's not the son-in-law, who is it? I think they have no idea if it's not the son-in-law, right?
No, I mean, that's a good point. It happens all the time out here in Los Angeles. A lot of bodies get dumped in the desert. Sadly, it's happened on a lot of famous cases, infamous cases, I would say. I mean, quite simply, we're talking about moving bodies. You asked about that. Go to Costco and watch people load a bag of dog food in their cart and see how difficult it is. People struggle with that. But what I also want to point out is, for your viewers, I mean, I think we pointed out on this podcast, you'll see in the news right now, they're chasing video.
Thank you very much for this, Granite. Medication taken when abducted or not? No, they left the medication that she needed at home. The speculation is that maybe they were going to find medication for her in Mexico. Maybe. But that's certainly not a sure thing. Thank you for that. Please remember to like the video if you haven't already.
At gas stations that are 10, 20 minutes away. That's exactly what we were talking about days ago. And what I think you're seeing is the FBI is catching up to what the investigative strategy is. And there's a playbook for these cases, a whodunit case. It is, try and figure out who is at the crime scene and then figure out where they went after. And that's what I think you're seeing. And let's pull devices, let's pull video, and then we're going to do our analysis, both before and after. Is there pre-planning? Is there casing? Was she being followed? All that stuff is happening right now. And I think you're seeing that develop by the news coverage where you're seeing detectives going to gas stations and try to pull video and stuff like that.
So Brian, if Jeff and I were in the command post and he came in and he said, hey guys, we've been chasing video and this is what we found. We think we found X vehicle at this Circle K at this time of the night or whatever. Then as the evidence response team leader, I'm going to say, somebody get with.
True. Granted, thank you again. If medication they got after, inside job to know. It could be. Well, I'm going to read you something here too. Thank you for this, by the way. Has anyone else found it strange that right from the start, they never warned the public about strangers in the area or a suspect on the loose? It's like they thought it was an inside job all along. I think that's weird, says Donna Byers on X. I think there might be something to that.
Streets and sanitation and find out exactly when that thing was picked up, when the trash was picked up, if it was picked up at that time. Who knows? Someone may have just pulled over to dump bloody rags. Remember we talked about, Brian, when you said that the blood stopped at the end of the, on the front porch?
Yeah.
Did the blood stop? or did someone put a rag on her face or some paper towels or a shop towel of some sort on her face to stop the blood trail or to offer aid because the whole scenario just went completely sideways on them? Either way, they may have thrown that out. And if it's a shop towel, it's bright yellow, you're not throwing it on the side of the road and you're thinking as you're driving, right? So you pull into Circle K to grab some gas or use the restroom or just to dump something. Now we're going to go to the dump, and we've done this hundreds of times, and it's the worst. That's the worst gig you could ever get assigned in your life. You go to the dump, they'll tell you.
This is true. Granite, thank you for this. Clusterfuck, you check roof 6 days later. Sloppy. Yeah, I mean, the local law enforcement seemed to kind of drop the ball on this one. Federal law enforcement's coming in there trying to clean up their acts and see what they can do. But clearly, to me, there was an altercation in the home. They probably assaulted Nancy, if not killed her, and that's where the blood came from on the front step. What happened from there at 2:28 a.m. when that pacemaker got disconnected is anyone's guess. I don't know. I don't know where they went, but they had about 9 to 10 hours of runway there between the time they figured something was going on and 2:28 a.m.
What quadrant they put it in, and you start looking. So if I'm looking for trash from a Circle K, I'm going to look for all the cups that have whatever logos. I'm going to have somebody first go over there, pull a bunch of these, the cups that they use, take photos of whatever you see, mainly in that store. So I can say when I'm doing my briefing to the team, hey guys, all they sell there is chips, those sandwiches, and those plastic triangle shaped things, the big cups that look like this, the smaller cups look like this, all their straws are red, all their, or whatever it is. And they sell more than anything. The number one thing they sell, hot dogs off those things with those little foil wrappers. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so
totally.
There's science to it that people don't realize, but we know what it takes. So then me and my team, one of the forensics teams, we're going to be out there, and we're going to probably be out there for 1 or 2 days.
So just to review, Savannah is Nancy's daughter. Anne is Savannah's sister. Cameron is the other brother. So those are the 3 siblings that are the children of Nancy Guthrie. The guy, Tommaso, is Anne's husband. No one knows where he is right now. I haven't heard a word from him or anything about him. Does that mean that Ashleigh Banfield's lead is correct? Very well could be, but we don't know.
For 8 to 10 hours in the trash, in Tyvek suits with those rebreather thing, or those heavy duty masks on with the things on the side. Oh, I hate wearing those. But anyhow, so that's what I taught when Jim mentioned yesterday about parallel investigations. There's dozens of them.
Right.
And then we come together every agreed upon time. So is it 6 hours?
This is true. Oh. Thank you very much, Granite. No traffic cameras exiting neighborhood. It's 2026. You would think there's something, whether it's a ring cam or another Nest cam. And we also mentioned satellites. Why can't the FBI have satellite imaging that they can kind of zoom in on? I'm not sure what their capabilities are with that, how powerful that can be, but I got to think it's got to be pretty good in this day and age. Thank you again, Granite.
8 hours, 10 hours, every it's usually more, a case like this. It's going to be at least twice a day. They're going to be coming together, talking about what they're finding. But Brian, I forgot to answer your question about the bodies, and Jeff can weigh in on this too. And that is, like if I'm trying to pull a body that weighs 150 pounds out of my car, even if I'm strong, first of all, it's not pretty. It doesn't look like it looks on TV. It's really, really difficult. It's very clunky. It's hard. And people tend to keep the bodies close to where they can drive. So if there is a body, I'm not talking about this case, but in any case, if there's a body and you've got a desert landscape like this with cactus and places that you cannot drive unless you've got a 4x or something like that, it's going to be closer to the road, or it's going to be in a burn pit.
Yeah.
Jeff, what do you think about this second note It came to the local TV station again through a form on the website. We don't know all the details, but we know that there was no way.
Sorry, Caroline. I missed this. Caroline says, thank you very much. I can't help but wonder if Savannah may have created an enemy by saying something politically provocative on TV. I wouldn't rule anything out, but as far as I know, she wasn't very provocative at all on the morning show there, or the Today Show, whatever it was called on NBC. Correct me if I'm wrong out there. I think the most that she did, she interviewed Epstein victims in 2019 is what I'm seeing. I don't think there's been anything more recent than that, and I don't know anything provocative she might have said. But if the chat can correct me on that, let me know. And thank you again, Caroline. I appreciate you.
They didn't give a new way to communicate. They didn't say, hey, this is how we can communicate. They didn't give proof of life. But there.
And the proof of life would make me not pay at all. Ugh. Granna says, thank you. Day one, this whole story stunk. It's within family. More than likely. Bruce Rivers, the criminal guy, he agrees too. Thank you again.
Was apparently something in it, and the IP address was different, but the word that Maureen used, the anonymizer, was the same.
Right.
But there was something in there, and this is the part they won't tell us. There was something in there, they said, that connected it back to the previous note.
Right. Yeah, maybe it's the same sender. Sounds like it is. This is the problem with going public with a KFR, is that you get potential vultures that try to capitalize, whether it's for money or for their own entertainment. We see this a lot when parents have teenage, young adult children who kind of walk away from home, and parents will blast their information on Facebook, looking for my child. Here's their picture, here's their interest, here's their name, call my number. And there are groups around the world that scan the internet for this information, will gather just enough information, will call the parents and say, hey, I saw your child, and they will have just enough information to say, I saw your kid, but I need a couple $100 because my phone minutes are running out. And so they hook them. And obviously there's no information on the kid, but there's just vultures. They do it for money. They do it for entertainment. So without a proof of life, these messages that are being sent locally, very suspicious. Very suspicious, nearly unbelievable. Obviously, it's the only thing that the FBI in this investigation has to go on at this moment that they're making public. But nearly almost unbelievable or unreliable without a proof of life. And obviously, we don't know the contents of the message, but it's unsubstantiated based on what I've heard so far. I don't put a whole lot of stock in it.
Do you agree, Maureen?
Well, I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think that the ransom, the authors of the ransom notes, if in fact they are connected, but Jeff, couldn't they both just be using the same anonymizer, like another vulture using the same?
Yeah, I mean,
I would say so. That could be likely. They're both using the same thing to make themselves be anonymous. Absolutely.
That's all possible. But I mean, if you're taking this old lady, what's the objective? Do you want money, or do you want trying to send a message? What's the objective? And if it's not money, then what is it? And whatever it is, it's not coming across. So, or is yet to be seen. So, like I said, this case, this situation doesn't match any facts.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Security cameras equal local video storage. EUFY. What does that stand for? But yeah, there should be some kind, but they already said there was no subscription to the Nest camera, so that won't be able to have video, but other videos in the area, sure. And for all we know, the law enforcement has them, and they just haven't told us.
Pattern. There's no proof of life, so it's really not a KFR. It's not a kidnap for ransom. It's not a no body homicide yet. So really, it's just a missing person. with a crime scene where there was potentially an injury. So,
Yeah.
It's what we're looking for is who was there, which way did they go, and we need to find them. And the best we're going to do that is what they're doing now is to try to trace cellular devices to figure out what we're going to do is we're going to find out what device was there, because who cares who was there? Let's figure out what device was there, and then we'll track it back to who was holding that device later.
Right. But I don't, everything inside me, I try to boil it down to the basics and then extrapolate out as I go in my mind on all these different things. But I got to tell you, it seems to me that the people authoring these ransom notes are far more organized than whoever did whatever they did to Nancy.
That's an interesting point there by Maureen. The ransom notes seem more organized than the actual crime itself. What could that possibly mean? Could it mean that they're not legit ransom notes? Could it mean that they're different people? Could it mean that people are just trying to exploit the situation? Neither one of them would surprise me, but what do you think, chat? Not true ransom notes, they're fake, or they're just better at tech than they are at crime?
Like, I'm not even sure the two are related at this point. I guess
Right.
people are saying that the veracity of the note, that remains to be seen. I'm not real sure.
I go back and forth, and just based on some of the things I've heard, and I told Maureen this. I talked to someone yesterday who actually saw the first note, and was trying to be respectful to law enforcement and didn't give all the information, but said there was some really specific information in there about something in the house and about a floodlight in the back of the house, and not just the location of the floodlight, but something really specific. And so there's been days where I've thought this is all BS. And then there's when I hear people like that describe it, I'm like, oh my God, like maybe these notes are legit. I don't know. I'm honestly like 50-50.
Yeah, Brian, I'll tell you this. I've worked many cases where there has been national coverage. I don't even want to say similar to this because I can't remember a case like this. But
so Brian Entin just posted a video to X where he says, "I'm outside Annie Guthrie's house where law enforcement appears to be taking photos inside." That's it.
That anyone is here, like that Annie is still here, or her husband, or Savannah. I was told
You guys
that
see?
they are not here, but I'm not sure. But law enforcement is definitely here, and they showed up tonight. And apparently we're taking pictures inside. I might still be taking pictures inside.
Okay.
I've worked many cases where there's been just massive coverage, whether it's been national or regional. And I have seen news coverage that's been, at the same time where I've been at the forefront of the investigation. And the news coverage is so far off of what where the investigation was that it was, I kind of would chuckle. And so that potentially, I'm hoping that the investigation is so far ahead that, we're going to have breaking news and this thing's going to be resolved.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem that way.
You make a really good point, and I've thought about that too, because I've covered a lot of stories where I thought, my gosh, they know nothing, and this is ridiculous, and the sheriff messed up in the beginning,
right?
Opened the crime scene, and this is a mess.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're like, oh my God, they really did know a lot.
Sometimes it's by design, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, I appreciate you both. I'm gonna get back out here because there's some kind of stuff outside the house, but Maureen and Jeff, you guys are just the best. I mean, you guys help us understand it so well. So thank you both very much.
Right.
As always, I really appreciate Maureen and Jeff for talking to me and all their expertise. I'm in the car now. We're still outside Nancy's house.
So I'm going to stop this and try to pull up Brian Entin's video on X. I had to try to find a way to do it. Okay.
There's two law enforcement vehicles. So I'm outside Annie Guthrie's house, which is obviously Savannah's sister, and there's 2 law enforcement vehicles here. My photographer was here when they got here and said that he saw camera flashes from inside the house coming from the windows. So it seems like they could be taking pictures inside. You can see the lights are on inside. We don't know that anyone is here.
So they don't know anyone's here. So Anne, Savannah, Cameron, no one. Or they just don't know.
Like that Annie is still here, or her husband, or Savannah. I was told that they are not here, but I'm not sure. But law enforcement is definitely here, and they showed up tonight. And apparently we're taking pictures inside. I might still be taking pictures inside. So I'm going to stay out here, obviously, but I just wanted to give you guys an update.
So taking pictures of the inside of Anne's house, does that mean that they think they might have taken Nancy there first, maybe? If it was the son-in-law, Tommaso, is that possible? And they're looking for evidence and clues there that that was actually also a place where Nancy was? That's just a guess, but what do you think? All right. Well, that was it. Now we're going to go to Bruce Rivers, the criminal guy.
It's
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And he's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another edition of Criminal Lawyer Reacts, CLR Bruce Rivers. I'm Bruce Rivers, your board-certified criminal defense lawyer, coming to you with my pearl-handled pistol cufflinks, so graciously gifted to me by our former content genius, Michael Rivers, that you knew and I know, my son, and he was a great guy, and God rest his soul. Anyway, today we're reacting to the disappearance and abduction of Nancy Guthrie. She's the mother, 84-year-old mother of Savannah Guthrie, the Today Show host. And this is chilling. And there's some reason why. And we're going to talk about how they're going to solve this and just some of the facts and updates that we have. And it's an ongoing thing. So we'll kind of keep track of this. But before we get to that, this is brought to you by our sponsor, AskALawyer.com. AskALawyer.com is an effective way for $49 that you can talk to a living, breathing lawyer to get you on your way. So if you have a legal problem, let's say you're being sued by your landlord, or you're getting evicted, or you want to evict somebody, or you've got just some kind of claim you think you might have, go to AskALawyer.com. For $49, you get the advice of a licensed attorney, and they're not going to represent you in court for $49. So there you go. So a few days ago, Nancy Guthrie was taken from her home, and we know this how. There's some real chilling facts here. First of all, there's blood inside and outside the home, and we'll show you photos of that. Secondly, we've got there's a Nest door cam. And there were other cameras in the house and outside the house that were smashed. Well, what does that tell you? That is foul fucking play, right? And how horrible for the Guthrie family. She's an 84-year-old woman, lost her husband when Savannah was in high school, I believe, and she never remarried. And it's just, by all accounts, this woman was inoffensive to anybody. But what do we know? So we know that there's blood inside and outside the home. That's disturbing. And during the press conference, they didn't say it was blood. And that's because it hasn't been tested. We don't know whose blood it is. Could that have been caused by the person smashing the camera? It absolutely could have. And here's the thing that makes this kind of more like an abduction or something like that. You've got a couple things going on. This happened roughly at 2 a.m. How do we know that? Well, she wore a pacemaker, and the pacemaker is connected to her iPhone. And when that separates, no longer gets a signal. And it's not like you can get a GPS signal from the pacemaker, but that's kind of a benchmark about when they think she left the house. So that's when because her phone was left there at the home. It is interesting that there's blood inside and outside the home. I could totally see somebody smashing their fingers or cutting themselves in trying to smash the glass that's on, these devices. And you wouldn't have these smashed by any other means than ill means, right? Is there any legitimate?
Yes, we know the blood that was tested on the front step is Nancy Guthrie's. We know that. We went over that yesterday.
Reason why somebody would smash these cameras? No, there isn't. So that's why we know there's some foul play involved. So we know that they smashed the cameras and came in about 2 a.m. And that's a problem. That's just those two facts right there. And the area that she lived, the homes and the properties that they own are pretty large. The properties are kind of secluded. In other words, they're in a rural area. So they're not, there's no street lights, that kind of thing. Where do we go from here? You have a woman who's having.
This guy's name is Bruce Rivers. He's a criminal lawyer. He lost his son, Mike Rivers, about a year ago, maybe a little more than that now. Rest in peace to him. But I like this guy. That's why we're watching him.
Probably getting around. She probably uses a walker or a cane. 84 years old. That's pretty common. You have somebody that has health problems. She has medication that she's supposed to take, life-saving medication. I don't know if it's been reported that medication is still in the home. I don't know that a kidnapper would necessarily know or even give a shit to bring that with. And there has been a ransom note that was sent to TMZ, but in all honesty, I sort of discount that. So who's our suspect? Where do we turn from here? An 84-year-old woman to take them and take care of them and keep them alive is a fucking pain in the ass. It's not easy. Same with, like a disabled child. And I've been practicing law for almost 30 years. I've never once seen a kidnapping ransom case. This is not something that happens every day. And so where do you turn? Well, one of the things you turn to is the electronic data, first of all, and it's usually somebody close to the vest, somebody that knows them or has reason to know them or related to them, like the husband's always an issue. Well, her husband died a long time ago, so he's not an issue. So who else? Who was the last person to see her alive? Was it the brother-in-law? As you can see here, creepy looking dude. Who knows? And one of the things that they can do is, there are cell towers, her cell phone works right in there. They'll pull
This is Bruce Rivers, the criminal lawyer.
Cell phones that were working on those towers at that time. And if you ping on the cell phone towers, it's suspicious if you turn your phone off, like in the Kroberger situation, and it's suspicious if you have it on. So it's like, but you're best off just to leave it on and put it on some public transportation somewhere, like duct tape it under. Am I trying to tell you how to thwart the law? No. Look into the mind's eye of somebody who would try to abduct and do something with Nancy Guthrie. And why would you do this? Is it a financial gain or is it a grudge? It's probably one or the other. She certainly isn't going to be sex trafficked. Who the hell would want that? I don't mean that in a way like it sounds, but that seems unlikely, right? Unless it's some creepy dude who's like somebody that did their yard upkeep, or a handyman or a cleaner or somebody like that. You have to kind of keep all that stuff in mind. Now, one of the things, even though you smash the camera, there's still going to be some data on that camera, because it's stored off site. It's
now I don't know if this is true. I don't think it's true because they said it doesn't have a subscription and they say it just loops. So I think he's wrong about this. I don't think they have the actual footage. It streams live, but if you don't have a subscription, it doesn't record anything. Why doesn't it record anything? Because to record is storage. Storage costs money.
It's in the cloud. You know, it's not like, okay, I got rid of the camera, I got rid of the footage. You know, my security stuff is right here on my phone, you know, and they left the phone there. So it would seem to me whoever approached the home should be seen on that camera. But whoever did approach knew enough to destroy the camera on the outside of the house and the other cameras that were around. So they knew that home, is my guess. They knew who they were going after. And how did they know that? So the house has been processed and it's been given back to the family. And one of the things that the cops are doing is they're waiting for that Nest footage to get to them. That's going to be huge because you're going to see who approached that door. You're going to see that. I would think. But are they covered? Are they disguised? You know, but you'll be able to tell, is that a man or a woman for sure. And this whole business of sending a ransom note to TMZ, that doesn't seem right to me.
I will say the letter begins by saying she is safe but scared. And they go on to say she knows exactly what the demand is.
Why would you send it to TMZ?
Well, time out. Let's see what the new TMZ people said, because they put out a video a few hours ago too.
NBC, ABC.
We have received this alleged ransom letter involving Nancy Guthrie, and the other media outlets that obtained the same letter are in Tucson. It just has markers that the person who did this is in the area where Nancy is and either knows Nancy or has heard, you know, Nancy's kind of a celebrity in the sense that her daughter is a big TV star. Welcome to the Two Angry Men podcast. Mark, as you know, we have received this alleged ransom letter involving Nancy Guthrie, and it is increasingly feeling to me like this is the real deal.
What are the earmarks of this thing that let you go to the...
So Harvey Levin, unlike Maureen, thinks this note's the real deal. Why doesn't Maureen think it's the real deal? She doesn't think it's the real deal because the crime scene's a mess, but yet these ransom notes seem very organized. So is it possible that you're just not a very good criminal or kidnapper or murderer, but you can still be good at the tech side of things? Just possible. Or is it more likely that, no, you're going to be consistent. If you're a good abductor / murderer, you're also going to be good at sending these ransom notes. So which one do you think it is, chat? 1 or 2? 1, no, bogus, not related. 2, no, maybe it is true, like Harvey Levin says here.
Where you put out there that you thought it was real, because that to me is really, that almost validates the fact that there's something to it.
Yeah, well, there are a number of things. One is the 2 items mentioned in this letter that presumably nobody would know unless they were part of that scene. One is the Apple Watch. Now, it's not a big thing that anybody knew that Nancy had an Apple Watch, a white Apple Watch, because she's been photographed with that with Savannah. But what's interesting in the letter is where it's placed in the house. And they mentioned that specifically. I found that interesting. The second thing is a destroyed floodlight. I know the FBI, I think they said damaged. The way it's written in the letter is destroyed. And that felt almost aggressive on the part of the writer. And, you know, as if maybe that person did it so there wouldn't be any illumination. So that was...
Can I ask one other question also? When you got this and you look at it, I can almost tell, at least I do my own triage when this comes in. Did it have any of the triage markings that you normally would see, which would indicate, I always say my 5150 hurdle, the single space, the run-ons, the things like this. What was the character of it without giving it away?
Oh, I'll talk about that. Let me just finish up on these two items. So I didn't know, whether the placement was correct. And at the time, nobody knew about the floodlight. So I called the sheriff's department immediately, gave them the letter. And then a couple hours later, the FBI called. And I thought, well, the FBI is calling for a reason, because I figured if those items were not legit, the ones that were mentioned, the FBI wouldn't even bother with it. But they did. They called and they asked a ton of questions and wanted to find out about the origin of this email, which we...
So more reviews, just to reiterate what we've mentioned before. Nancy Guthrie did not go to church in person anymore. She went to church online. As far as we know right now, there was no way for anyone to know she was not at church. Now, I wonder if there was a live chat in there and maybe she wasn't in the live chat and that's how they knew, but we don't know. So what you have to do is ask the person who said that. Ask the person in the congregation that said, oh yes, Nancy wasn't in church. That's what started this process. So I'd be very curious about that. Another thing to note, these notes, Savannah said that they're willing to pay. I wouldn't pay a dime without proof of life though, because they're just going to run. Why would you ever pay without getting what you want first? That's what I would say to that. Also, remember to like the channel. If you're here, subscribe to the channel. Do a lot of true crime stuff here. We talk about current events, and I use my experience with mental health stuff, addiction, and narcissism, and I apply that to the current events and true crime.
Can't tell them, and I don't think they've figured it out either. But as for whether this is a crazy person who wrote it, yes, we get tons of crazy people.
So more things. Pacemaker disconnected from the phone at 2:28 a.m. That's probably when they left the area there. Medication that was very needed of hers was left at home. That's very troubling, especially since this was 7 days ago now. So unless they got her medicine somewhere else, or maybe some people are saying, well, poor man, blood thinner is aspirin. Maybe that would work. But either way, with each passing day, it's not a good sign. And the percentage chance she's going to make it back alive, smaller and smaller by the day, I would say, unfortunately. Miracles can happen, though. Elizabeth Smart made it 9 months with her captor. She was a teen, but she still did survive.
Writing these. This is exactly the opposite. This is a well-constructed, structured, layered letter that has a beginning, middle, and end. It is grammatically all correct. Spelling is correct. It's not AI. You can tell whoever wrote this didn't throw it together in 5 minutes. And it is, I think, written by an intelligent and probably well-educated person. That's the way it reads to me. So it's the exact opposite of that, which put my antenna up even higher.
Right.
Now, the other thing that, look, I want to get into...
Does the letter itself make a ransom demand? And if so, what kind of currency?
Well, they're asking for it in Bitcoin, and they gave a Bitcoin address, and it's a legit address. The problem with Bitcoin is you just cannot find out who it's going to. And so,
well, they've got, that's where I push back a little bit, because I know from actually 2 cases.
So I'm pretty well versed in Bitcoin. You can have a general idea of the address, but who has the address? That's a little more difficult to figure out. They can track some of it though. But when you get into the privacy coin territory and private transactions territory, that's much harder to find. And then it can go anywhere from there, especially if they start diverting the funds to several different wallets. Then it becomes tricky to track them all. So a tech-savvy person that's trying to exploit people like this, that's what they would do.
I have right now that they don't want you to know this, but the government now has ways. They've got a front row seat, for lack of a better term. They've told me it's like watching a marathon. They can watch it go as it goes down the chain, so to speak, and they can generally follow it to a wallet.
Well, see, the first part of that I believe to be true, and that's what I've heard as well, that they can follow the chain. What I'm told is they still can't determine who it's going to. But maybe you're right. I don't.
Yeah, they say that. I based on what I've seen in government discovery, I'm not buying that at all. I think they now know, and I think they've got access to digital wallets and things of that nature. I think they can trace all that. It reminds me of when they went and got Maduro. Nobody had ever heard of that kind of eardrum disabling kind of weapons that we have. I can tell you from discovery in other cases that they have a sophisticated ability to track this stuff. And by the way, I think it's one of the reasons that blockchain technology and all of that is actually being embraced.
If you're right, then it makes even a better case for the Guthrie family to pay the money even without proof of life, if indeed the feds could track it down, arrest the person, and recover the money. If you're right.
Well, that's why I've had this situation, not often, but a couple of times. And, normally it is in a ransomware kind of a situation or cyber warfare, things of that nature. But in this case, I would be surprised if they weren't engaged in some way, shape, or form. I think that's also why the FBI was so curious and questioning you and trying to figure it all out.
Well, I put my IT team on the phone.
Yes, Peach, you can. So there's coins like Monero, privacy coin. You can't see it. There's other coins that are privacy transactions. It's probably what you'd want to do. Right? Because any cryptocurrency, the blockchain is a public ledger. No corporations or anything are going to want to do things on a public ledger. They're going to want to do things privately if they were actually using it. So that's what people would do.
With the FBI, and they spent a fair amount of time talking, and my IT team said that they reached a dead end in trying to figure out where this came from. And it's very
well, that I would believe, because the sophistication of routing the emails through kind of a washing machine, so to speak, I think is a lot more sophisticated than what the Bitcoin tracing is.
And you may be right in the Bitcoin, I don't know, but in terms of the tracing the email, we couldn't do it. And my sense from the conversation, and I will say, this is just above my skill set to understand what they were all talking about, because it was very technical, but it sounded like everybody was stymied in terms of figuring that out.
Did they get a location where they hit a dead end?
We thought there was a location, and then it was so sophisticated that kind of blew up. So they don't have a location. They do not have a location. At least at the time we spoke with them, they didn't. And I don't know that they're going to be able to. My IT team thinks they can't. This episode is sponsored by Incognate. Personal information is more accessible than ever. Sometimes it's obviously there's a money demand. And if the money demand is met by the Guthries, then it triggers something, and it triggers the return of Nancy within a certain period of time. So, and we're talking hours. And in terms of that time, it's interesting because we took the maximum time they gave. So pick a number and say that she'll be returned within X hours. We know what that X is because it's in the letter. I'm not going to say.
And then what did you do, a radius?
What we did was this. We figured that whoever's got Nancy, they're not going to fly back to Tucson because you're not going to get on an airplane and show ID and everything else, obviously. So they're going to drive. And they're not going to drive at 100 miles an hour because they don't want to get stopped for speeding, because if they get stopped for speeding, it's over.
And believe it or not, Harvey is older than guy on the right here.
So they'd probably go about 60 miles an hour. So we looked at the 60 miles an hour and took the longest distance, and it's about a 700-mile radius, and it basically includes much of the western United States. And that's still a huge area, but at least it's something. In other words, it's not the whole United States. It's not Mexico or outside of the. Well, it could be actually.
How'd you triangulate to Tucson?
The
Because
way
that's interesting to me. Because there's another crypto-related incident at Tucson simultaneous to this. That at least that's kind of the scuttlebutt that's going around.
I'm glad you asked that. The way we traced it back to Tucson is because that's what the person who wrote the ransom demand said.
And again, as far as I know, there's been 0 updates on Anne's husband, the son-in-law, Tommaso. 0 updates on anything about him, where his whereabouts are. All we know is Ashleigh Banfield's source in law enforcement said he's a suspect. But that's all we know. We know that. We know Nancy Guthrie's car towed. We know Anne's car impounded. That's it. And now we know that federal agents are at Anne's house taking pictures, but no one else seems to be there. So what does that mean? Does it mean they think Nancy was there at a time and they're trying to gather evidence? I don't know. So many questions unanswered.
That we will return her to Tucson within X number of hours. So we used Tucson as the center and then went out the number of hours maximum it would take to drive. And that's how we created the circle. And so at least there is something here that within that circle, they can be especially vigilant if this is real. So it's something, because up to this point, there's really nothing, but at least the circle gives you some way of focusing on this. And the reason I say that this is somebody in the Tucson area who wrote this thing is, think about it. Does it make sense? Somebody's watching the Today Show and says, wow, there's Savannah Guthrie. She's rich and famous. I'm going to go find a relative. And they find her in Tucson. Or does it make more sense that somebody in Tucson says, oh, Nancy Guthrie, her daughter's famous. I know Nancy Guthrie, or I heard of Nancy Guthrie. Her daughter's famous. It's Savannah Guthrie, and she's rich and famous. It feels like it's the latter rather than the former.
And by the way, also, does this person reference anything besides a watch, like a pacemaker or any other kind of don't try to find this or don't try to trace this or anything else that's indicative or consistent with information that was not publicly reported at the time?
They don't mention pacemaker. They do say this will be the only communication and the police aren't going to be able to help you. And they have 2 deadlines, one of which is already passed. The second one more consequential, which is Monday at 5. And
are they for money? Are they for? Do you have to do something when you say a deadline of giving money?
Yeah, the money changed yesterday at 5.
Right.
The Monday deadline is different and more consequential.
Right, and so that's why I suspect that something was paid and they're tracing it.
I don't think so.
That makes some sense. Why do you not think so?
Because they are making pleas to return her, and the sheriff is asking people for help, and they're asking for proof of life. I got to say that
and again, I wouldn't pay a dime unless there's proof of life.
I were in their shoes, I would totally understand waiting, because proof of life is going to be really important. This letter says she's okay but scared, and that she knows what's in this ransom letter. This is what the letter itself says, that Nancy knows. And so, they're obviously trying to put pressure on emotional pressure on the family with that. But,
but didn't the FBI contact you prior to the first deadline?
Yes. We got the
Right.
letter on Tuesday, and we talked to the FBI on Tuesday.
Yeah, I suspect complete speculation that they can walk and chew gum at the same time. They can be making public pleas. They can be go down that route, which they should be doing.
People are saying there's a live search warrant for Ann's house, but no one said that. Someone just titled their video that. We haven't heard that for sure.
But at the same time, they could be testing out various things to try to, the writer of this, and you'd want proof of life, but the FBI, the investigative technique might be to test out the first deadline and to see if that is proof of somebody that is other than just a looky-loo copycat or somebody who's trying to profit on this.
See, if I were running this, I mean, I would tell them, don't pay right now, let the deadline pass and demand proof of life, because whoever wrote this, if it's real, they want the money. I mean, that's their end game. They want the money.
Yes, as we said, Brian Entin, I showed the video of this. He's there. Federal law enforcement is at Ann's house. They don't know why. They're taking pictures. They don't know who's there, but that's all they know. We should not jump to conclusions.
And if the more they have time to think, I got to show proof of life in order to get the money, the more likely they're going to get it before the Monday deadline. So the first deadline, it makes a difference financially, but it's not going to make a difference in terms of Nancy Guthrie's life. And so if you really want that proof of life, which I totally understand, you wait and you see if they feel the pressure to ultimately show something, an audio tape, a video, a something. And believe me, we're looking at our inbox, our tip line every minute.
I was going to say, how are you? What are you getting? What kind of quantity of incoming?
I mean, we always get incoming, but we haven't gotten anything else, obviously, from whoever wrote that letter. And the other two media outlets that obtained the same letter are both local TV affiliates in Tucson. And that again tells me that whoever wrote this is Tucson based, because why would they send it to a local, and how would they even know the call letters? And
what affiliation of Tucson are the other two? NBC, ABC, CBS? What are they?
One is called KOLD, and I don't know whether it's ABC.
I would interesting if it was an NBC affiliate.
I honestly, I should have looked at that and I didn't. But they're local affiliates nonetheless. And the point being, they're not sending it to the other nationals. They send it to us, but they send it to two locals. It's making, I'll tell you, it just has markers that the person who did this is in the area where Nancy is, and either knows Nancy or has heard, Nancy's kind of a celebrity in the sense that her daughter is a big TV star. And so that's kind of where my head is. But boy, they are in a rough position. We're talking Friday afternoon. They got till Monday on this thing. And again, they don't know for sure whether this note is real, but the way authorities are now talking about it, they seem to think it is, or at least it's their best hope.
So is it generic to the three media outlets, including TMZ?
Heather, we don't know what information the family is responding to. This all speculation, what you just said. Seems the family was responding to more current information, and also many think they are asking for body. No one said that. You are completely speculating right now. I was skeptical, but someone pointed out they did not speak to the mother directly. I mean, that's jumping to conclusions.
Or specific, each one gets it specifically. One document that is addressed to all three, and it's the same, or is it tailored to each one?
Tailored to each one.
Okay, so that's interesting also.
Why? Why is that interesting to you?
Because they have picked recipients who are going to target certain audiences, and they know a demographic that they're trying to speak to, or that they're going to get it out. It's interesting to me that they went one international TMZ and then they went two local. I get what you're saying about that it's that it's indicative of Tucson. I think that it's also consistent with the idea that she's still in that area.
I'll tell you something I haven't really talked about, and I'm going to only pose this.
No, I simply don't like when people speculate as if it's true. We have to be careful. It's best to be cautious about these things until you know. Then when you know, you say clearly what's happened. That is how you avoid confusion. That's how you avoid misinformation. That's how you avoid things getting passed down the line and things just getting more chaotic. So that's how I try to play it.
This is a hypothetical. What if it went to the local stations before it went to TMZ, and they were waiting to see if it got out?
Right.
And
I think that's exactly, I think that's, you read my mind. I was going to say whether it was tailored or not, because is there anything in the one that goes to TMZ which leads you to believe sequentially you were the last out of the three?
I can't say, but I'm just raising it as a hypothetical.
Yeah, that would be my guess. They thought that saying it local would get some traction. They got no traction, and they went to TMZ.
That's a good theory.
But then people are also saying, no, this information is irrelevant because of what the family just said. That is more than that's you're acting if it's true. That's when it's not. So you can't say things like that.
It makes a whole lot of sense to me. I don't think that necessarily means that it's, authentic in the sense that it's coming from the person, but for somebody who was trying to gain attention or trying to make make this a profitable criminal endeavor, that makes some sense. That rings consistent. They thought if they just got it, and that's why I asked about the local affiliate. I wanted to see if they sent it to an NBC affiliate first, thinking that the NBC affiliate, because Savannah is with NBC, that would have triggered a national traction of it.
KOLD is a CBS affiliate. There is a second one. I don't know what the affiliate is on that second one. I got to tell you something. One of the first things that popped into my head, Nancy is not in great health. She has a pacemaker. She also has high blood pressure, and she has medications that she really needs. And so my feeling was that, the place to go if you're law enforcement is a pharmacy, because you want to see if somebody got a prescription that would match what she was taking recently. If somebody got a prescription during that time frame, that few days, because they need to keep her alive. If they feel like there ever was a chance they would have to show proof of life, and she didn't have her meds, I would think that there would be pressure on whoever took her to get those meds, and they're not going to go back to her house. So the only thing they can do is see if they could land a prescription. And if they land a prescription, there's going to be some record of somebody getting that prescription who may not have gotten it before on those critical couple of days.
Well, have you run down the pacemaker angle? Because what at least is being reported is the pacemaker stopped at around 2 a.m.
It was disconnected from the Apple Watch. Right.
Yeah. So it was disconnected. Just because it was disconnected does not mean that there aren't ways to make contact with it. And I just wonder if that's one of the things that they're exploring right now. And
we went through the timeline that Brian Entin shared and Ashleigh Banfied shared between 9 p.m. and noon the next day. And I mean, the relevant information, the pacemaker disconnects at 2:28 a.m. That's a relevant piece of information. 1:47 is another relevant time. That's where the person was there for 41 minutes. But again, there's so much time in between some of these things that we just don't know. They probably left after 2:28 a.m. though.
Because disconnecting from the Apple Watch is one thing, but disconnecting from being able to be picked up is a completely and wholly different situation.
Yeah. I want to get back to the sophistication of whoever did this, that if this note is real, if it is a real ransom note and this person has Nancy Guthrie, it is, again, really well crafted and layered. And then you look at the crime scene, And, this person knew to disconnect the cameras. This person knew where to go. I mean, this person, I would assume when they say the floodlight was destroyed, if I walked in the backyard and I already saw a damaged floodlight, I would just simply say it's a damaged floodlight in the letter.
Or you could say broken.
Broken. When you say destroyed, that feels to me like this person destroyed it because it was on and they didn't want to be illuminated. And so by using the word destroyed as opposed to damage, that makes me feel like they destroyed it because it was on and they didn't want to be captured, and they had gone to great lengths to disconnect the camera. And we know that somebody showed up, but not on video, at sometime around 1 a.m. So this person knew his or her stuff. That seems
it's
pretty
obviously
clear.
Somebody's familiar with the location, whether it's the note or was separate and apart. If the note is not authentic, somebody still knew certain things. I mean, by the way, you would have to know about the pacemaker and the.
So to reiterate the timeline, because this relates to the pacemaker that he's saying, 5:32 p.m., January 31st, Nancy goes to local family's home. 9:48 p.m., family drops Nancy off at home, garage door opens. Now, we don't know who specifically dropped her off. Was it Anne? Was it Tommaso? Was it both? We don't know. February 1st, 1:47 a.m., doorbell camera disconnects. So they smashed it. They have a figure that they said was on a camera, but the problem is the Nest camera, there is no subscription, so there's no video stored. Now, other houses, their cameras still worked, and I would also wonder, the FBI, can they use a satellite image and zoom in? I would think so, right? Considering the technology we have today, but we haven't heard anything about that. 2:12 a.m., software detects person on camera, but no video available. 2:28 a.m., pacemaker app disconnected from phone. 11:56 a.m., family checks on Nancy. Why did they do that? They said there was a woman in the congregation that said Nancy wasn't at church. Nancy only goes to church online. How did she know she wasn't at church? We don't know yet. 12:03 p.m., family calls police. 12:15 p.m., police arrive. That is the factual timeline there. But as you can see, between 2:28 a.m. and 11:56 a.m., that's 9.5 hours of what did they do in 9.5 hours? They could do anything. How far can you drive in 9.5 hours? Far, right?
Apple Watch together, unless it was just happenstance and somebody decided, I'm going to get rid of the Apple Watch because that has some kind of a find my device or share my device feature. And so they did not want that. But the pacemaker to me is a significant fact that I'm sure they are following up on.
Yeah, the other significant fact I think they must have already followed up on, and probably it didn't yield much, is that.
Again, they don't know exactly who was in the car when they dropped her off. Was it Anne? Was it Tommaso? Was it both of them? We don't know yet.
That because this person was so careful, to me, they cased that joint before they did it. And if they cased the joint, they wouldn't have done it a month before. They would have done it sometime in a narrower time frame. That know that you go to all the neighbors, like a wide swath, and you ask, did you see a car in the area that did?
So Daisy, the problem is people were saying that there's no way to know. So how would the church know she didn't link up? So the church can see it, but other people can't? Where did you learn this?
Belong. Did you see, that would be, that, I mean, that
well,
could,
the other thing that,
and they may have surveillance.
Right. So you take the surveillance cameras, but also you go to the cell towers that are in the immediate vicinity and you check, 3 hours, 4 hours before, 5 hours after that time period. You see what's pinging, where it's pinging, and you can do some geofencing and reverse engineering of what numbers, if there was a phone that was active at the time, if these people are sophisticated enough to have not taken a phone into the location. That's also interesting, and actually would probably support your idea that this was highly intelligent and well crafted, and give it some you tilt towards it being more authentic.
Okay, so I have a question for you, and it's more of a psychological question. And since you've dealt with cases like this, this is the one thing I'm just fascinated by. So Savannah Guthrie and her brother and sister have all kind of delivered these emotional pleas to release their mother. And they have really tried to pull at the heartstrings on the surface, you would think, of the person who took her, and to talk about what a wonderful
So question for the chat. Did the church make an official statement that they knew she wasn't there? Because if so, I haven't heard that yet. Now, is it possible they can see who's logged on? Maybe. That's possible. But I haven't heard it. So if you can tell me where you found that, we can check it out. But I haven't heard that yet. From what all I knew was someone in the congregation said Nancy wasn't there. That's all we know. How did they know that? I'm not sure yet.
mother she is, what a wonderful person she is, how, her grandkids love her. The cynical me says that's not going to work on somebody who kidnapped this woman, because they know what they've done. So what is the purpose of that? I'm not saying it's not authentic, because it is.
It's clearly authentic. It's clearly
Right.
comes from a place which is, I don't want to say cathartic, because cathartic,
but it's
gives this
real.
idea,
It's just real.
but it's real. It's real. But what law enforcement, why they do this is they don't know who it is yet. So they have to keep all their options.
Thank you very much for this, Caroline. I appreciate you and all of your super chats. Super chats are a great way to support the channel. So are memberships. Likes are free as well. Please remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. I talk a lot about true crime, current events. I'm live almost every night, and I use my experience about narcissism, mental health, and addiction, and I apply that to true crime and current events. And there's a great flock of black sheep here too in the comments. In the live stream, the live chat, I should say.
Open. One of those options is that it's somebody who knows or has had prior contact, and that it is not somebody who is cold-hearted, calculated, and targeted because it has no interaction or prior contact. If it is somebody who has prior contact, who's got some mental health issues, or has got some kind of connection and is motivated by something else, they're hoping that this kind of penetrates that kind of fog.
Yeah, I hear you. It's hard to believe. I mean, when you do something like this, the impact it's going to have on the family. An 84-year-old woman, somebody who's clearly close to Savannah and the other kids. So it. Maybe you're right, but I just don't see how. I'm just trying to look for another reason.
Well, let me tell
why
you
they
this,
went
and it
public
goes
that
back
way.
to what we said before. The complete speculation, I'll preface it, then I've got to go. But they may not have, and I've seen a lot of people comment on this, the kind of traction and the exponential coverage this has received. I don't think anybody would have predicted that, even if you're, the mastermind, media mastermind. This has taken on a life of its own that has eclipsed other stories that are out there that seemingly, if you looked at, are bigger and more consequential. And I don't mean that in a cold-hearted way. I just mean if you're trying to do an analysis of it.
So can I give you a theory?
Yeah.
So my theory is that when they went public the way they did, law enforcement probably knows this is not going to make the kidnapper say, oh my God, I'll return her. But if anybody in that kidnapper's world knows what this person did, it would play on them. In other words,
Yes, that
they
is
would
a-
squeal.
I have no doubt your theory is right. I mean, and it also is part of the wide net. Clearly, you never know who's going to turn on who. So somebody might have it might tug at their heartstrings.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay, we have two. Hold on. Yeah, I got 2 minutes with you. You promised me that. So in 2 minutes, let's talk about how do you play this out through Monday? What does law enforcement do? What does the Guthrie family do?
Oh, they pay. I think there's no question, but that you pay. They've got the, I think, sophisticated ability to trace where it goes. You don't want to play around, whether it is this or any other note. I'm sure they're doing they've got profilers in here. They've got people who've analyzed your note. They've got people who've analyzed the other tips.
Correct. But the new information was, the initial pressure didn't say this, is that, well, they said someone in the congregation said that she wasn't there, but we know now that she was only going online. And so I don't know how they figured it out.
They are casting a wide net.
So you pay the money and hope, even though you have no proof of life.
I think you do. Yes, I think you do. I mean, it's an impossible situation.
If the kidnapper really does have Nancy Guthrie and believes that they are completely anonymous, what skin is off their teeth to get an audio of Nancy Guthrie saying something where it's not AI. It's like, Savannah, I remember, here's what I gave you for your last birthday, or something that the public wouldn't know, that AI wouldn't know. So you just have her do an audio.
Thank you, Classic Rock. Classic Rock Vixen, what a great name. Do you believe the kidnappers are professionals or actually a known person to the family? Hi, Harvey. So that's a tough one because the crime scene doesn't look very professional, but some of these ransom notes look more professional. So if I had to guess, it's someone they know. That would be my guess. Someone they know. And if it's someone they know, less likely it's professional, but it could be someone they know that hired a professional. We just don't know. But thank you for the super chat.
Of something like that, because then you're going to get the money. I mean, if that's their end game and they really do have Nancy, wouldn't that person give them some proof of life? Because that's where you cash in.
Yeah, but we may not know that. We may not know that, number one. Number two, they may not. And
so, Denise, the reason why I was skeptical of that, or is Daisy, I'm sorry, is because yesterday they were saying there's no way to tell if you're not online when you go to remote church. That's what they were saying yesterday. So that's why I'm showing pause for concern.
If they do, the people who took her may have this in the back of their mind, that is how we have traditionally, we meaning law enforcement, traditionally have traced people by sound, by where it is, by other kinds of metadata.
So doesn't it give you a little bit of pause about the legitimacy of the letter if the person wouldn't do something that simple and untraceable to secure the money, which is what their point in the first place? I mean,
yeah, I agree, and I'm not embracing it. I'm just running through it. At this point, you do everything you can. Law enforcement's got to be full bore on this.
Okay, you got to run to court. You got to do what I do.
I got to run to court.
But you got to do what I do, where I don't have to run to court.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. I got to wear my suit.
Most recent post on X from Brian Entin. Flashes still going off in Annie Guthrie's home. Definitely taking photos. Brian Entin hasn't mentioned anything about a search warrant, though. They don't know. They just don't know.
Someday I'll grow up to be Harvey Levin. Bye.
I'll see you.
All right. Tigress, thank you very much. Why is there a limit of $199 for a question. As in, you can't go higher than that? That doesn't make much sense to me. Yeah, you should be able to do more than that. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to. I saw Caroline did 10. Interesting. I don't know. So that's that. And that's really, though, that's all the up-to-date information we have. I mean, this is from 20 hours ago. This is going to be more of a review, though.
That they are looking for. Activity. Hey, everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield, and this is Drop Dead Serious. And it has been another day, and it has been a big day, culminating in a very big night. I am actually recording this at midnight, just at the end of February the 6th, Friday night, because this day was so jam-packed with developments and activities and I don't know, we just felt we were being yanked back and forth in the missing disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. Everything from a new ransom message, not ransom note, just a message to the president weighing in saying, we may be there. I've got so much to update you on, but just within the last hour, and again, I'm recording this at midnight, we've got activity at Annie Guthrie's house, federal agents at Annie Guthrie's house. We have activity also 4 miles down the road at Nancy Guthrie's house. I don't know why all of this is happening in the cover of darkness. Again, it's 2 hours prior to midnight.
So I wish I could answer that for you, Tigress. I want to send $9.99, but you only get a sticker option for that. That is interesting. I'll have to look into that. And maybe other people can let me know if it's doing that for them too. I hope not. But I appreciate the thought there, Tigress.
10 o'clock at night there where this is happening. But the day has been chock full of bizarre activity as well. Agents showing up and shutting down an entire street, moving all the reporters down the street, and then fastening a ladder up on the side of Nancy Guthrie's house, clambering up onto the roof and chiseling away.
And I think Hot Tamales might be correct here with this. Tigress, move the dot to the right. That's probably it. Thank you, Hot Tamales.
At, what do you know, more cameras. I'm going to tell you everything that happened today, including an incredibly astute analysis from a former hostage negotiator who has something, probably the smartest analysis that I think I've heard throughout this entire awful ordeal about these ransom letters. I think he really puts into perspective what they could be all about. And I'm going to play all that for you in a minute. But I have got to play for you what the President of the United States just said on Air Force One this evening.
President Trump. Caroline, thank you very much. You can. Jared, has anyone about Savannah being furious with Ashleigh Banfield for accusing her brother-in-law? That's a very good question, Caroline. We can search for that. So is she upset with her? That would be very interesting if so. Thank you for that, Caroline. And Tigress, you did it. $9.99. Thank you, chat, for helping her out with that. I appreciate you all. So Hot Tamales and everyone. Caroline, thank you. Super chats are definitely appreciated in the channel. Thank you very much. Tigress is the best.
That just kind of gave me whiplash because I thought, oh my God, he's had a report of some actual movement in this case. Here's the president speaking to reporters. Take a look.
We have some things I think that will maybe come out reasonably soon from DOJ or FBI or whoever that could be suspect. Yeah, could be definitive. A lot's taken place in the last couple of hours. A lot of things have happened with regard to that horrible situation in the last couple of hours.
I think that we will maybe come out reasonably soon. FBI, DOJ could be definitive. A lot has taken place in the last couple of hours. And all of this at a time when there's this frenetic activity out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home, as well as a new ransom. I'm not going to say ransom because they're not calling it a ransom note, but a new communications note sent to, again, a TV station. And the way this is sent makes a lot more sense now, because we all thought they were being emailed, and why were they being emailed to certain people and who? Turns out, no, tip line, webmail, like just through the website. You know, when you set up a customer service comment and they say, put your address here and put your...
I found something, guys. So Savannah Guthrie's family, this is radaronline.com. Savannah Guthrie's family exploring taking legal action against TV host Ashleigh Banfied for claiming missing Nancy's son-in-law is a prime suspect in case. Very interesting. Savannah Guthrie's family is considering exploring taking legal action against TV host Ashleigh Banfied, radaronline.com can reveal. The reason they are thinking about that is due to Banfield making claims that Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law is a prime suspect in her disappearance case. Banfield alleged on Drop Dead Serious that investigators had taken a car belonging to Savannah's sister, Annie, and that it had a connection to a man named Tommaso Cioni. She went on to state Cioni, who is married to Annie, was being treated as a suspect in Nancy's abduction. She did note, however, that these were musings and not evidence. That was interesting. According to Hollywood insider Rob Shooter, who writes on Substack, sources said this caused Savannah's family to start exploring legal action against Banfield. You can't float accusations like that and hide behind disclaimers an insider shared. This dragged innocent people into a nightmare. And they go on to say the sheriff denied the claims that Banfield said. They slammed the unverified accusations and called them irresponsible. That statement changed everything, another source claimed. Once police publicly pushed back, the family felt real harm had been done. While no lawsuits have been filed yet, consultations with litigators are said to be underway. So there you have it.
Comment here and you know, send in your comments. That is how this latest communication came in. I'll explain all of that in a moment. It's KOLD TV in Tucson, but they're not calling it a ransom note. They're saying it's more like a message. And I wouldn't say it's helpful. They're not saying everything about it, trust me. But let me just say this, not helping to further communications. But back to the developments tonight. Agents are back in two locations. Nancy Guthrie's home, which is the crime scene, 4 miles down the road. Annie Guthrie's home, Nancy Guthrie's daughter, Savannah Guthrie's sister. So it's midnight Eastern right now and 10 o'clock-ish in Tucson. And agents showed up at Annie Guthrie's home, 3 of them, according to Brian Entin, who's there watching. He's got eyes on. And they showed up in the cover of darkness and then left. I don't know what to make of that. So much that's happening has been unusual in this case, including some of the comments from law enforcement all throughout this. Lots of backtracking, lots of sort of confusing messaging, not the least of which is who dropped Nancy Guthrie off. The sheriff has said 3 different things and then walked it all back saying, we're just going to go with family. Now we really don't even know who the last person or people was, to see Nancy Guthrie. I found that odd.
Now, again, if these people want fame and attention, maybe they try to do something tomorrow night during the Super Bowl. I will not be live tomorrow night during the Super Bowl, but maybe if that's their goal, maybe they do something then to get all eyes on them. Could that happen? Absolutely, that can happen.
I found a lot of the wording of the press conference yesterday odd. I found it odd that a lot of the press didn't pick up on the fact that the sheriff said the car has been towed per a warrant and it's being processed. I believe I reported on Tuesday, Annie Guthrie's car was towed.
Yeah, so Annie, car was towed, processed, impounded.
and is in evidence. And then tonight, lest there be any confusion on what car was towed, another car was towed. Nancy Guthrie's car was towed out of her garage at the crime scene at Nancy Guthrie's home. So the reference to a car already having been towed, Nancy's, no, that happened.
Correct. So I can pause this and go back to X for a minute because Brian Entin's got a new update.
Not much has changed here outside Andy Guthrie's house. There's, I think, 3 law enforcement cars. We're not sure what agency they're from. There's this pickup truck, there's an SUV, and then there's another SUV behind there, I believe. But they've definitely been in the house taking photos. Like, there's no question about that because we've seen the flashes and we have some of the flashes on camera. And the interesting thing is they've been in different parts of the house taking photos. So we saw them over on this side. But then we also saw flashes coming from this side over here. I don't know if they're going into every room or if there's certain rooms that they're focused on. But this is Annie Guthrie's house, Savannah's sister, Nancy's other daughter. She lived here with her husband. We've seen police here before. The FBI was here earlier last week. And then there was the day that the federal agents were here and went in with the ring light and the tripod when they made the first video. When Savannah and her siblings made the first video, but we don't think that anybody's staying here now. Like Savannah and Annie and Annie's husband, I think, are all gone because it's been quiet here for like the last day or so.
So people in the chat were saying they're probably in a hotel because of all the hubbub. But don't you think they'd still want to know, like, oh yeah, what are they doing at Anne's house? What are they doing at Annie's house? Right? I mean, it's so weird.
But the timing is just interesting. Like, why would they come tonight so late to just start doing this? I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, so I just wanted to give you guys a little update. I'm going to stay here.
So we'll play this one again because it's only 1 minute and 39 seconds in case you missed something.
Obviously, let's see how this all sort of wraps up. All right, just wanted to give you guys a little update. Not much has changed here outside Andy Guthrie's house. There's, I think, 3 law enforcement cars. We're not sure what agency they're from. There's this pickup truck, there's an SUV, and then there's another SUV behind there, I believe. But they've definitely been in the house taking photos. Like, there's no question about that because we've seen the flashes and we have some of the flashes on camera. And the interesting thing is they've been in different parts of the house taking photos. So we saw them over on this side. But then we also saw flashes coming from this side over here. I don't know if they're going into every room or if there's certain rooms that they're focused on. But this is Annie Guthrie's house, Savannah's sister, Nancy's other daughter. She lived here with her husband. We've seen police here before. The FBI was here earlier last week. And then there was the day that the federal agents were here and went in with the ring light and the tripod when they made the first video. When Savannah and her siblings made the first video, but we don't think that anybody's staying here now. Like Savannah and Annie and Annie's husband, I think, are all gone because it's been quiet here for like the last day or so. But the timing is just interesting. Like, why would they come tonight so late to just start doing this? I don't know the answer to that. But yeah, so.
I mean, that is a good question. I mean, why are they doing this now? I mean, this is all 7 days later. Like, what's happened so that now all of a sudden they need to be taking pictures of the home? What are your theories, chat?
Just wanted to give you guys a little update. I'm going to stay here, obviously, see how this all sort of wraps up.
All right. So that is that.
that happened tonight, that would have been Annie's car. At least that's the way I see it when he says, as for the car being towed, that would have been Annie's car being processed as per a warrant, right? To get a warrant, you got to have probable cause. You got to go before a magistrate usually or a judge and get get the warrant okayed. Megyn Kelly.
And by the way, please remember to like the video. Likes are free. We got to at least get this thing to 1,000. There's a lot of views here, so we need more likes.
Who you're going to hear from in a bit. She and her team reached out to get the warrant, and it was sealed. So don't hold your breath. They're not opening that information up, but I would like to know what the probable cause was to tow that car that the sheriff confirmed yesterday had already happened, that I reported on Tuesday of this week.
Thank you very much, Danielle. Happy Super Bowl tomorrow night indeed. I will not be live. People are saying I'm crazy for saying they might try to do something. Wouldn't surprise me, right? I mean, if you want notoriety, it's not beyond people like Ted Bundy and friends and BTK Killer. This is how they get caught. They want the notoriety. They want attention. So it's not impossible. That's part of this here. I'm not guaranteeing it either, but thank you, Danielle. Danielle's an OG, everyone.
4 days ago. So let's see what else. A lot happened today. Again, Nancy's car has been towed from her garage. A Circle K representative has told the media that authorities have come and asked for video to check it against a vehicle that they are looking for. And the Circle K executive said that they complied and gave the video that law enforcement was looking for. Fox had some really, really interesting video today. They videotaped agents on top of Nancy Guthrie's roof. And you could see these agents kind of like working a camera until they got it off its mount, removing it from like the gutter area of the roof line. And News Nation also had, drone video showing agents clambering up on the roof with a ladder that they had affixed to the backside of Nancy Guthrie's home, where the pool area and the garden is. That's also the same area where Fox zeroed in on smashed floodlights that are sort of over the back door area, kind of inside the garage into the back door area, the back part of the backyard. And so those floodlights look very smashed to me. The brick even looks damaged if you zero in, but those floodlights are like hanging off of their wires. So whomever may have been responsible for this may have been the parties that did that to the floodlights. But I was fascinated to see that way up high on the roof line, these agents who were up on the roof were able to actually physically, get a camera off its mount and put it down beside them on the roof. And what's important to know here is the sheriff had said Nancy Guthrie did not have a subscription service for her Nest system. And I say Nest because my source called these Nest cameras and said they'd been smashed. And the problem with not having a subscription is you don't have the archival video, but you have the alerts. You know when the alerts happen. And if you're lucky enough to catch them live, you can see what's going on live. But the minute it's over, you don't get the history. You can't go back and look at the video. So the company that they've been working with to try to get this forensic historical data can only sort of tell them, well, there was an alert at this time and there was an alert at that time. And it's basically motion detected at your back door or motion detected. But the sheriff said there was no way to tell where the motion was detected, which camera. It just said the system detected motion. So the cameras that this Fox News video was able to see today being dismounted, from the gutter area.
So one thing, thank you very much for this, Heather. I definitely appreciate you. Thank you. And the other thing is people are saying law enforcement is leaving Annie's house now. So what does that mean? Not much, I guess. They're done taking pictures. But there's been no arrests or anything, so.
The top of the roof line. I don't know whether one of those might have been the cameras that alerted, But the sheriff said the cameras, plural, and this is important because my source said that they were smashed. And the wording that the sheriff used were smashed I don't know where you got that. I'm not confirming that. We don't have them. They're gone. That was fascinating to me. Clearly, at least one of them that the Fox News cameras caught today, that was not gone. They got it today, days after the processing of the scene. So some other things that happened today, really, really important. Another note. Let's talk about this other note that came into KOLD. And I don't know. Every time I hear something about these notes, I think more and more these are just, the worst of the worst, scamming parasites somewhere from overseas who know how to work, an encrypted IP address and have their ability to cloak their software and ask for Bitcoin. But this was a weird message today because it wasn't a ransom letter. They're not calling it that. And it wasn't a demand, so to speak. It was strange. And KOLD's news director spoke at length.
Thank you, Emma. Smash the like button indeed. Likes are free. And I mean, some people are saying that the family is basically conceding that she's passed. I didn't really get that from it as much. I know why they're saying that. They're saying so we can celebrate her life. Like, okay, like she's passed. Maybe. I mean, I'm not ruling it out, but I'm certainly not going to be definitive about it either.
About what it was not proof of life. She was clear about that. When Elizabeth Vargas on News Nation asked, did it talk about Nancy Guthrie's condition? The news director of KOLD said, I can't go into that. That was interesting. But then the news director spoke about how that new message came in. It was not an email. This is this weird web-based customer tip line, like put in your name, address, birth date. What's your comment, ma'am or sir? That's how it came in. Not very sophisticated, if you ask me. Certainly not somebody who's planning for a multi-million-dollar kidnapping, hit job. Doesn't seem like it to me anyway. And I'm not the only one who says that. But yeah, it came in on a web form. And when name, email, and birth date were filled out, news director said name wasn't even on it. It was just a smattering of words. She wouldn't get more clear than that. Did not give a way to communicate. Once again, this was a communication that was not a communication, so to speak. Didn't give a way for the Guthrie family to ask for proof of life, to ask about steps afterwards. Like, how do we get our mother back? Once again, amateur hour, it seems. And when I say that,
Thank you very much, Caroline. It's interesting that Trump has been so caring towards Savannah, given that she has been critical of him. That is an interesting point. If she has indeed been critical of him, that is interesting. Usually he wouldn't like that. But maybe he's got the humanity in him's coming out, or maybe he wants to kind of get like a public victory here. Maybe a combination of both. Thank you, Caroline.
I want you to hear from Dan O'Shea. Dan O'Shea is a former hostage negotiator. He's got a few miles on him in this business, and he may be the smartest voice that I have heard so far in these last 5 days of this very confusing, complex, mysterious, and tragic saga. Dan O'Shea talks about the kidnap business because it's what he works in for a living, right? He's the negotiator. He said, kidnap for ransom is a business. They're not idiots. They want their money. They do this. They have a protocol. They have a system. They're typically pretty sophisticated, kidnap for ransom. They don't typically beat the shit out of their victims and then ask for money without any other communication. They just don't operate in this way.
So she's saying the professionals wouldn't be doing that. Maybe. I mean, how hard is it really to control an 84-year-old woman? It seems completely unnecessary that they would have to actually injure her like that to the point of her bleeding. And the way the blood's on the floor there made it seem like she's being carried out face close to the ground, which would make sense. It shouldn't have had to come to that, though. I don't know why it did.
They operate in a way where they can get their money. I want you to hear from Dan O'Shea because I think he says it far more eloquently than I do.
What do you make of these latest developments that in the first message from these purported kidnappers, they had said, this is our demand, no more communication. Then we have the family coming out twice with videos pleading for proof of life and a way to communicate. And now we have, it looks like, according to the news director of the station that received 2 messages, it looks like they're both sent from the same person. They are communicating again. So they've already changed at least one condition.
Yeah, but the reality is they have not provided proof of life. Again, this was stated in their previous show on News Nation by one of the, I think, FBI law enforcement personnel. This isn't like any case I've ever.
And I do think they probably did like punch her, but it's not necessary. I mean, you don't need to punch a 40-year-old woman to subdue them. Unnecessary.
Ever seen, and I've been tracking cases now for 20 plus years. My 2 years in Iraq, 04 to 06, but I've almost got a PhD in this, and I've never come across this case with, the demands sent to TMZ, sent to local news media. They need to go directly to the family. They're asking for millions of dollars on Bitcoin, which will be untraceable if that money's sent.
So, Bella, they've determined that the blood in the front step is indeed Nancy's blood. I'm not sure if there was more on the inside, but definitely that blood in the front step was Nancy's.
And they're not acting in good faith. And I frankly think this group is going after the news media. They've created this 24/7 news cycle. And I think this exposure may be part of it. So you have to look at, the motives. Why would you go after, Savannah Guthrie is a very high profile figure, but, she's not controversial. Why would they go after her mother who's, got a health condition? She's 84. But my bigger concern is the fact that they use violence at the scene.
Yes, because we know that Nancy's blood was found on the front stoop. She was hurt at some point while she was abducted.
Right. So from the get-go, the family cannot trust.
Brian Entin posted the X 18 seconds ago. All the deputies have left Annie Guthrie's house. The last one came out wearing blue gloves. They were inside for about 3 hours. So what does blue gloves indicate? That it's a crime scene and they're collecting evidence? Is that what blue gloves indicate? They're not trying to contaminate a crime scene or contaminate whatever is going on in that house? Interesting. Good reporting there by Brian Entin, and good reporting by Songbits in the chat here too. Shout out to her. Songbits Laura.
That they're dealing with an honest broker from day one. Kidnapping is a business. Kidnap for ransom is a business, and people need to play by the rules. This group or this individual is not playing by the rules. Therefore, the family and the others will be hesitant to move forward because there are no good faith negotiations in this case.
Yeah, listen, the Guthrie family has a very, very difficult decision, an excruciating decision to make in the next hours and days. Do they pay this ransom without proof of life? Because the second message does not contain proof of life.
So is that what it means? Forensics team equals blue gloves? I want to make sure I'm not talking out of my butt with that, but that's usually what it means, forensics.
Life. Or do they risk something happening to their mother and having to live with the fact that they gave up perhaps the chance to save her? If you were advising this family, because we know the FBI is working closely with the Guthries, what would you tell them? What do you think the FBI is advising them?
Well, you never pay without proof of life. Bottom line, especially not millions of dollars. The fact that they showed violence from the get-go, they have a propensity to violence. There's no guarantee. You could.
So Savannah Guthrie's net worth as of February 2026 is an estimated $40 million. It's more than I thought. Income, she earns an estimated annual salary of approximately $8 million for her role as co-anchor on NBC's Today Show. She has been a fixture at NBC News since 2007, serving as a legal analyst, White House correspondent, and since 2012, co-anchor of Today. So that's 14 years of around $8 million a year. Holy mackerel. She and her husband, Michael Feldman, have invested in various properties. Isn't she divorced? Including a Tribeca condo purchased for $3.5 million in 2012, a second Tribeca apartment bought for over $7 million in 2017, and a home in the Catskills. Many people can't afford one home. They have several.
I'm just saying it's a very tough decision. I can't imagine what the Guthries are going through at this stage.
Is she still married? Why was I hearing before that she was divorced? Interesting.
But you cannot pay something without a proof of life. And this clock is ticking. Monday's going to be here very soon. But they have to stay strong because, and there's no guarantee that these email messages are even coming from people who have her. And if they do, there's no guarantee that, that they're going to make a deal to bring home
Savannah Guthrie is 54 years old.
her mother safely.
So take that for what you will. I think a lot of people are weighing in on their feelings about this whole ransom story being ancillary to the actual crime itself. These are just parasites trying to benefit off of this horrible circumstance, this horrible crime that's been committed against the Guthrie family. Maybe we should expect more of this in the future in the AI world that we're living in right now. The ability for scammers overseas to take Americans at will, and they have no compunction, wiping out senior citizens of everything they have. They have absolutely no compunction to do so. So why should they care otherwise? This may be part of our new normal. So as we process the feelings about the kidnap and the ransom notes and whether they're just red herrings, ruses, whatever they are.
I mean, law enforcement is acting as if Nancy was also there. That's what they're acting like. That's what this all implies to me. Why would they be there if they don't think Nancy was there at a point? That's what it means to me. And also, I think the FBI is trying to play it safe too. So they've made Nancy's house crime scene. I guess they're not making Annie's house a crime scene, but they're taking pictures on the inside. Like did they have rope it off? I haven't seen them rope it off.
Ancillary problems. One is already being prosecuted.
Yellow tape it off, I should say.
In California, right? One guy's already been arrested for inserting himself allegedly into this and demanding, ransom money. We'll see how that plays out. I don't hold out a lot of hope for a jury liking this guy if he ever gets to a jury. Today, more unusual behavior out in front of Nancy Guthrie's house. We've been to this rodeo a few times now, right? Monday, the crime scene is released after I think 30-ish hours. Mea culpa's already been given by the sheriff. He said, look, Monday morning quarterback me. I'll take the heat. Maybe we shouldn't have done that. Maybe we should have brought in the feds earlier. Give the guy grace. This is a lot. This is a lot for this sheriff. This is a lot for this department. This is a lot for this community. They don't see a lot of high crime, and the world stage just descended upon him in real time. But he was gracious enough to say, I'll take the heat for that. And then suddenly crime tape went up again midweek, but only for 2 hours. Brian Entin watched the whole thing. He was right there reporting it live on News Nation. And then the crime scene tape went down again. And then again today, all the media. And Brian says there's like 300 media out in front down that road, all trained on Nancy Guthrie's home and whatever activity might be there. Suddenly, the agents are pushing them all the way. Off you go, everybody down the road. We are clearing this road. They shut down an entire spate.
So Brian has another video that he posted actually a few minutes before the one I just read out. And he's saying the law enforcement is leaving. Some of the comments are saying Annie and her husband are cooked, but we'll see.
Road out in front of Nancy Guthrie's home and moved all the press down the way, right? All of that happened right at the same time, roughly, that news of the ransom message, rather, I should call it a new message adjacent to the ransom notes that came out before, all coming at the same time. So lots of analysts are speculating, maybe there's something in the note and the agents are coming in. And they brought in, an FBI response unit. big vehicle pulling into the front of Nancy Guthrie's home. And people, agents are going in and out of the house at this point. So it's a very busy, busy moment in the day. At the same time, there was an older couple that looked like they might have been neighbors, dressed in civvies, right? A woman and a man, and they are in the back area. I'll say yard, but the rough behind Nancy's beautiful manicured backyard and pool area. They're kind of among the cacti and the rough terrain. And they're standing with about 3 different agents, maybe 4, but you can see them kind of pointing things out. These civilians, maybe neighbors, with these agents who are in uniform, looking in the back area. And there's been a lot of this, right? Like there's been sporadic looking. There's been helicopters flying above in the last several days. And I keep coming back to Monday. Not even 30-ish hours after the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie, they called off the search. Called it off. No need to search here, folks. Nothing to see here. And we won't be reigniting the search unless, things warrant. Well, we've had a few searches since, yeah. But why did they call off the search so quickly on Monday? I still go back to that. And I'm wondering, what did you know? Because an 84-year-old woman is missing. How could you not be searching everywhere for days? Typically, when someone goes missing, searches go on for days. And eventually they start pulling back. It's very, very disheartening for the family. But this was like, nope, it's over. No searches permanently, he said. That's an odd thing to sort of think back on. And then I will come back to this again. I've harped on it already, and I will harp on it again because tonight, Nancy Guthrie's car was towed. On Tuesday, my source told me Annie Guthrie's car was towed, and it was put into evidence. And yesterday, Thursday, February 5th, the sheriff in his news conference said, the car being towed, that's standard, as per warrant, and it's being processed. I don't think that's so standard. I don't think that's so standard. And not many people picked up on that. But I had a pretty fulsome conversation with Megan Kelly about this. Megan is no flies on Megan Kelly. She's a lawyer. She does crime reporting. She's smart as a tack. She is sharp, right? She's smart as a whip, smart as a tack. And so I had this very significant conversation about things that were said and things that were not said in that news conference and where this might be going. Have a look.
Okay, so let's get to your reporting because it was very clearly the gorilla in the room yesterday at that presser where it came up 3 different times, 4 total, with the sheriff saying, we have no suspects.
TMZ did not say she's dead. Jason's trolling.
No persons of interest. And then some broadsides, quite clearly, I thought, at you. I think you agreed. I watched your show this morning without naming you. And some of the media are piling on, these influencers looking for clicks are reporting, irresponsibly. That's bullshit. You are not an influencer looking for clicks. I've known you 20 years. That's not who you are. So people are dismissing this at their own peril. It is everyone there. Even the sheriff said, no one's been cleared. Everyone's a suspect. So it is not inappropriate to start where all law enforcement starts, which is with the family and work out. That's what you're doing. You would be doing that even if your law enforcement source had not said that the brother-in-law may be the prime suspect. It's not inappropriate to ask questions about the family. It's actually imperative. So here's what the sheriff said. Let's listen to SOT 19B.
Nobody's eliminated, but we just really don't have enough to say, this is our suspect, this is our guy, we know, or our gal. We just don't know that. And it's really kind of reckless to report that someone is a suspect when they could very well be a victim. It just, I bring to you, to the media, I plead with you to be careful of what it is we put out there, because we don't have anybody here listed as a suspect, and you could actually be doing some damage to the case, but you can do some damage to that individual too. This is social media is kind of a.
So that radaronline.com website that I was reading, this is what they're saying the Guthrie family was upset about, that the sheriff said this, and it made them think that Ashleigh put the case in danger. I don't know which one it is. I mean, Ashleigh Banfield's been in this a long time, since the 90s. She has a high profile, and she has a source in law enforcement that told her this. I mean, again, if it were me, maybe I'd be a little more hesitant, perhaps, maybe, but Ashleigh knows it more than me. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes down. They think the Guthrie family might sue her.
Kind of an ugly world sometimes.
Okay, so Ashleigh, are you standing by your exclusive reporting broken 2 days ago now that
Three
a
things.
top
I
law
think we're at
enforcement
3.
official who,
Yeah, real early
It's
on.
3, okay, who's an impeccable source, told you that Tommaso Cioni, who is married to Annie Guthrie, Savannah's sister, may be the prime suspect in this
At
case,
this
and
time.
that
At this
the
time.
at
Yes.
this time, and that the car that was towed and impounded was Annie Guthrie's car.
Yeah, the word that was used was towed and taken into evidence. I noticed that that was actually confirmed yesterday. Car was towed and is being processed as per warrant. That was said by the
Sort
sheriff.
of. He didn't say it was Annie's, and
The
the
car,
way he
yeah.
said it actually raised me a bunch of questions. The car, and he made it sound like it was at the crime scene, which is odd. I don't know that Annie Guthrie's car was at the mother's house at any point. You know, oh, actually, here we have it. SOT 16. Let's listen to how he described it.
The car, the car that was at the home is just standard investigative practices. It's part of the search warrant scene, court orders. We pull it out of there and do our scene processing with the vehicle.
Part of the search warrant
Well,
scene.
and at the home.
And that is, Susie, that's a good point. What they don't say in that video that Savannah did, that they don't ask for a proof of life. Does that speak volumes that they didn't ask for it? It could. It very well could.
That would
You know,
speak to it being at Nancy's.
It just said at the home, and they've been at 2 homes. Law enforcement has been at
Right.
2 homes. And my source said definitively, car was towed and is in evidence.
Ah. Shannon, thank you very much, Shannon. I appreciate all of the support. Shannon has been a great help in getting the likes up too. So thank you again. Super chats are a great way to help the channel here, and likes are free.
That's 3 days ago.
And that it was Annie's. That it was Annie's.
That's and said it Annie's car. Did not say the car, said Annie's car. The sister's car was towed and is in evidence. And he only would say the
Yeah, he
car.
did not
at the
deny
home.
it.
He didn't deny it. He didn't deny a lot of stuff yesterday. He took pot shots, and I get it.
Okay, but let's
I
get to
it.
the big. Let's get to the big headline about Tomas and what your source. Because I heard your show. Have you been checking in with your
Yes.
source on that piece of your reporting?
Multiple times per day. And yesterday, I was told by the same source, still on target. And then he said, let me put it to you this way. If they're taking shots at you, you're standing on the target. That was his words.
So no wiggling, no backing
No
down.
backing down. No change.
And let me ask you this: is he, even though I'm just saying he, I don't know whether it's he or she, but is this person? You say a top law enforcement source, but is this person in a position to know about what's actually happening in this case?
Yes. And then after the break,
Lisa, thank you very much for the super sticker. I definitely appreciate you. Welcome to the channel. I don't think I've seen you here before, so definitely welcome. We've got a great flock of black sheep here. And thank you again.
I was informed on day 2 that the sheriff's department tightened up like a noose, angry about leaks. And so if my information wasn't accurate, why would anybody be worried about leaks?
Who would care?
Who would care?
What Ashleigh Banfield
Right. Must be just some influencer.
is reporting.
So that also strengthened this information. I didn't need the strengthening, thank you, given the level of this source of mine. And by the way, I got asked that yesterday, Megan, by somebody in the mainstream media. Well, you're not working for a main network now.
And again, I have no reason to believe that Ashleigh's source is wrong. I would think if anyone has good sources, it's her, right? I don't know why this person would tell her something wrong. So I would believe it. I believe that that was true.
So have your standards dropped? I thought, right.
Oh,
Well,
Lord, this
I've
is
been at it
infuriating.
38 years. I don't think I'd throw my entire 4 decades away for one story. You know, I get it. People have to have their own headlines too. But I did find that pretty offensive. No.
Well, not
my
only that,
standards
but
haven't
I've noticed
dropped.
something else. Some people who consider themselves close to Savannah, I've observed, have been particularly dismissive of this report. And I don't know if that's out of loyalty to her, like she wouldn't like this, or whether they've actually been in touch with her and she doesn't like this. Either way, with all due respect to Savannah and the family, it's fair reporting.
Yeah.
And you certainly could not go by what Savannah wants you to report in covering this case. Of course, she'd be inclined to defend her family, even her in-law family members. And that there's no question you wouldn't depend upon one of the victims of the crime to guide your investigation as a reporter of the crime. So I've just noticed there's a strain of people who I know consider themselves friends of hers who have been particularly disdainful and are trying to move the coverage elsewhere. And that just can't happen.
Well,
Like,
that would be
that's
a hit
that's not how this
to
game works.
integrity of what I do. Would I change the way I work because of who I'm covering? No, unfortunately. And it's been very difficult. We've had to cover, I remember one of the first stories that I covered in 1988 was someone I knew was nicked by the feds for cross-border drug dealing. And I had to put it on the news.
Oh.
That was one of my very first stories as a cub reporter. And it was
Wow.
like, well, baptism by fire, here we go. And so out it went exactly as the police had reported it to us at CJBN in Kenora, Ontario. But yeah,
Wow.
that would be a questionable move in journalistic scruples if I decided to couch the reporting because of who I'm reporting on. And it's hard. It is hard. All right. So there you have it. Look, things just keep developing late into the night. So I do these podcasts very late at night so that I can get the whole day summarized into one thing, as many things as I can pack in that happen in this particular story. But I hang on President Trump's words. And he said, I'm talking about a solution. We have some things I think that maybe will come out reasonably soon. FBI, DOJ could be definitive. Watch this space. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for watching. And remember, the truth isn't just serious. It's drop dead serious.
A new report claims the alleged ransom note sent in connection to Nancy Guthrie says that she is safe, but she is scared.
Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything direct.
That's the first I heard of that. When did they say the note said she was safe but scared? Did we hear anyone say that before?
Directly.
Nancy Guthrie's son is trying to speak directly to his mom's kidnapper in a video that was posted to Instagram.
Lisa, thank you very much. If Tomas possibly were the suspect, why would the family record those videos? Damn good question. It doesn't make much sense to me, right? He's a suspect. Why would Annie be there in those two? It's like, if he's really a suspect, do you think Annie is going to know nothing about it? I don't know. There's just so many things up in the air. But thank you, Lisa.
Instagram overnight, where the search for Nancy seems to be centered as the FBI is offering thousands of dollars now as a reward. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart. Well, it is now day 6 in the search.
Yeah, so they said it a couple days ago. I don't know why the other people weren't saying it.
For Nancy Guthrie, and one of the 2 deadlines listed in an alleged ransom note is passed.
This is Cameron Guthrie. I'm speaking for the Guthrie family. Whoever is out there holding our mother, we want to hear from you. We haven't heard anything directly. We need you to reach out, and we need a way to communicate with you so we can move forward. But first, we have to know that you have our mom. We want to talk to you, and we are waiting for contact.
That's the video posted right around the time that the FBI says a deadline was listed in the alleged ransom note that authorities and the Guthrie family seem to be taking very seriously. Now, that deadline was 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Thursday. The FBI also said that there is a second deadline listed in the note, claiming it was around sometime this upcoming Monday, but they didn't go into further details on that during a news conference Thursday at the Pima County Sheriff's Department. They did, though, unveil some key information that was included in the alleged note.
Next, regarding the ransom letter. We are aware of a ransom letter that was sent to the local media and then to national outlets. As with every lead, we are taking it seriously. We are in communication with the family. And while we advise and recommend from a law enforcement perspective, any action taken on any ransom.
And so to be clear, the safe but scared thing, that was from several days ago. For some reason, the other reporters weren't mentioning that part, but it was said.
Is ultimately decided by the family. Thank you to those in the community that have called in tips. For anyone out there that may have information, no matter how small you think it may be, please report it. You can do so by calling 1-800-CALL-FBI or online at tips.fbi.gov.
Now, the alleged ransom note that has been talked about was received by TMZ.
Well, Daniel, we have caught up. We've watched every possible new thing there is, whether it's Brian Entin's ex's posts, his YouTube videos, Ashleigh Banfield, all of it. We've watched it all.
As well as at least 2 local TV stations in Tucson. TMZ said the FBI asked them to withhold sharing certain pieces of information in the note, but they did unveil some new details overnight that we'll talk about here in just a moment. The FBI said as of Thursday, there's been no communication between them, the Guthries, beyond this alleged note that they're still trying to figure out whether it is actually related to the people who allegedly took Nancy Guthrie. They did say that there are certain details about this note, the timeline of it, that it's just odd in these cases. The fact that these kidnappers, they send this note, but there has been zero communication since. Now, this note that was sent to local television stations on February 2nd, the day after Nancy was taken, they also say that that is odd considering that she is this elderly woman who needs medication daily. And without it, according to the sheriff, it could be fatal. Now, after that news conference on Thursday, we did see some activity, not just at the home of Nancy Guthrie, but it appears new that authorities are canvassing the area around the home of Nancy's daughter, Annie. Now, these are pictures of Annie's home in Tucson, and she is the oldest daughter of Nancy Guthrie. It is.
And now this video is more of a review, but we've gone over everything that's new. This is more of a review.
Believe that this is where Nancy was for dinner Saturday night. Media outlets say that they saw members of law enforcement canvassing the neighborhood around Annie's home on Thursday night. They were reportedly asking her neighbors for home surveillance video. They did the same earlier in the week in Nancy's neighborhood. Now, it's important to note that it's unclear if this is law enforcement retracing their steps, just getting a fresh look at Annie's neighborhood, since this is where it is believed that Nancy was before heading home, where she was allegedly kidnapped, or is this because of new information that has come in? We do know that the federal government is now offering a lot more resources over the last 24, 48 hours in helping the local sheriff's office there in Pima County. So is this a situation where just these new resources are getting acclimated with the area? They wouldn't go into more details about that, but you're certainly seeing more activity around the house where Nancy Guthrie is believed to have had dinner before heading home, where she was allegedly kidnapped later that night in the early hours of Sunday morning. Now, there have been reports as well that a vehicle belonging to Annie Guthrie's family was taken by law enforcement. On Thursday, the Pima County Sheriff brought that up and passed it off more as standard procedure of looking at the evidence in this case. Potentially that is the vehicle that Nancy Guthrie took to get home after dinner at Annie's house.
The car, the car that was at the home, it's just standard investigative practices. It's part of the search warrant scene, court orders. We pull it out of there and do our scene processing with the vehicle.
Now, we know from the sheriff that...
And overall, Chad, I got to tell you, this is just a wild case where Who would have thought? Who would have thought an 84-year-old woman gets kidnapped, abducted, maybe murdered? Maybe it's a son-in-law. Maybe it's not. I mean, it is wild. Not on the 2026 bingo card, as the kids would say.
Nancy took an Uber to Annie's home around 5:30 Saturday night. She has dinner there with her family. She has games. It's a very typical evening. And then she is driven by family, according to the sheriff, back to her house where she lives alone, and she arrives home around 9:45 in the evening. Now, the sheriff was asked who was the person or people, the members of her family, who drove her back to her house. But the sheriff said,
if I can get the 5,000 live viewers, that would be the most I've ever had, by the way.
He's just going to keep his answer at family at this point, not specifically saying who the person was who drove.
Thank you very much for this, Lisa. Just subscribed. I think you're great. I know this is an awful situation, but it cracked me up when you called Heather out. Sometimes I can be a little feisty, and usually I'm correct, but not always. You can call me out if I'm a little out of line.
Nancy home. It's certainly interesting, but it also may be the sheriff just trying to protect the names of people, as he reiterated yesterday that they do not have a suspect or person of interest in this case.
Can you confirm whether it was Annie or her son-in-law, Tim, also who took her home that night?
I think the timeline that the sheriff provided was a family member, but
Just family. We're going to go with family.
Now, before I get back to more of what was reportedly in these alleged ransom notes, I want to go through the new timeline that we have, what law enforcement said for the first time, laying out what they found in this investigation. But it's also important to talk about what law enforcement won't say, which could be key in piecing together where they are at this point. Now, deputies say...
Pausing it again. Don't care what you say. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate you. Timeline.
When Nancy gets home, her garage door opens at 9:48 in the evening, and then it closes 2 minutes later. So that is believed to be when Nancy gets home and she goes to bed. Things get very concerning a couple of hours later at 1:47 in the morning. That is when Nancy's doorbell camera disconnects. Now, you might remember this video from earlier in the week from News Nation showing the doorbell camera missing from its mount on Nancy's front door. The new information we have on that is the sheriff said that law enforcement does not have that device, that camera, in their possession. The sheriff also said the blood that was found on the front steps of the house was sent in for DNA, and it came back as Nancy's blood. They also say at this point they do not have evidence that is tested positive for someone else's DNA. They did say they're waiting for some results to come back. The doorbell camera is gone, but there is some kind of software in the home that picked up motion outside the house at 2:12 in the morning. The sheriff says that they were not able to get video of whatever that was outside the house. He admits it could be an animal, but it also could be very critical to this investigation. It could be the suspect who allegedly took Nancy Guthrie. You have 2:28. This is very key. Nancy's pacemaker disconnects from her iPhone. Now, law enforcement say they have Nancy's phone. And just from our research, it appears that a lot of pacemaker apps can disconnect when they're separated from the phone. It may not be a situation where someone goes into a phone and then physically turns off the app or something like that. Now, Nancy then does not show up for church the next day on Sunday, and that's where family gets concerned. They go to check on her just before noon. Then at 12:03, 911 is called.
Nancy, a white female, 84 years of age, 5'2" medium build, powder blue. Things after 2,200 hours as of yesterday. Nancy has high blood pressure, pacemaker, and cardiac issues.
So it's important to talk about what law enforcement is not saying in a case like this. We talked about how the sheriff said that he will not specifically say who drove Nancy home from Annie Guthrie's house. He also pushed back on a report that there were signs of forced entry into Nancy's home.
Someone had mentioned there was forced entry. I have no clue where that comes from. We have been very consistent. We are not discussing that at all. Whether it's forced entry or not forced entry, that is something we're just not discussing. So I don't know where anybody got that information.
So you hear the sheriff being critical of that report, but he's not saying whether it was wrong. He also would not disclose if more blood was found inside of Nancy's home, said he would not talk about the crime scene specifically. So all we know officially is that Nancy's house appeared to be a crime scene from the very beginning. So now we're going to talk more about this alleged ransom note, and new information on this is coming in. It's very important. So we know that this note was sent to 2 local TV stations in Tucson and to TMZ. And that ransom note had 2 deadlines that we know about. One of them, 5 p.m. Mountain Time Thursday, and it also reportedly demanded a large amount of Bitcoin. And the FBI says the note mentioned Nancy's Apple Watch, which reportedly was found on a charger in the home, and a floodlight. So it's unclear specifically what happened to the floodlight, but it was pointed out in that news conference that you can see Nancy's house from where the media has been on the street. So it's unclear if that's something that was already out into the public, or is it something that a kidnapper would only know? Now, we don't know if the Guthrie family received the same letter. In their Wednesday night video, Savannah Guthrie did mention artificial intelligence and images and voices. Remember this.
We are ready to talk. However, we live in a world where voices and images are easily manipulated. We need to know, without a doubt, that she is alive and that you have her.
Over 5,000 live viewers, most I've ever had. Thank you, everyone.
So the FBI isn't saying more about that, whether there were images or recordings or what communication, if any, beyond the alleged ransom notes that we know about, that type of communication to the Guthrie family. That's not entirely clear. Harvey Levin of TMZ, he went on cable news last night and he said in the letter they received, the second deadline that was mentioned was Monday, and the FBI said that as well, but they won't go specifically into more details about it. But he also told Fox News this, that second deadline is, quote, far more consequential. He also said on Hannity on Fox News, quote, the letter begins by saying she is safe but scared. And they go on to say she knows exactly what the demand is. And so they are, through us, telling the family, and obviously the sheriff's department gave the family the letter we received, exactly what they're demanding. And they're saying that Nancy is aware of it, end quote. So he also said the FBI is working with TMZ's IT team to try and figure out who sent the email, but that could be a challenge. He also said there are pieces of the email that makes him believe whoever took Nancy Guthrie is local to the Tucson area. He said this, quote, there is a phrase in this email that absolutely makes me believe this person who wrote this, and if they're telling the truth, that Nancy is within a radius of the Tucson area, not in Tucson right now, but the radius, it could be New Mexico. I don't know how far, but I think at least what the authorities have is they've got a radius, and that's something. The FBI is now offering a $50,000 reward for information that can help authorities find Nancy Guthrie and bring those who took her to justice. And anyone with information can call the FBI. 1-800-CALL-FBI is the number, or the website tips.fbi.gov. You can remain anonymous. Now, on a separate note,
can we possibly get the 2,000 likes in the chat? Likes are free.
Related to this story, the FBI says they have arrested someone who was an impostor trying to allegedly take advantage of the Guthrie family in their most difficult moments. This is the complaint that we have. It was filed in federal court in Arizona, and it charges a California man for allegedly sending 2 text messages and making a phone call to the Guthrie family, posing as someone who sent the alleged ransom notes demanding Bitcoin. The man's name, Derek Colella. He's in his 40s, and allegedly he admitted to the FBI after they took him into custody, after he was read his rights, that he did contact the Guthrie family after they posted that emotional video pleading for the alleged kidnappers to contact them. Colella allegedly found the phone numbers through open sources online for 2 family members who are very close to Nancy Guthrie. He allegedly sent them text messages as he was following this story on TV. And the message he allegedly sent, quote, did you get the Bitcoin? We're waiting on our end for the transaction. The FBI says he then called a member of Nancy's family shortly after sending the texts, and that call lasted allegedly 9 seconds. Colella admitted to using an app that allows you to call someone from a different phone number than your own for as maybe.
Thank you very much for this, Lisa, for $2 super sticker here. I appreciate everyone's support because there used to be only 10 people in this chat, and now there's 5,200. Pretty awesome.
Be shrewd as allegedly he thought he was. It was no match for the FBI, apparently, because they blasted through that app pretty quickly. They found the app that he used was linked to an email, DerekColella@gmail.com. A SWAT team then reportedly took Colella down, and he is now facing 2 federal charges. And I mean, certainly you look at this and it's just, who is the type of person? And he's only accused of it at this point. He hasn't been found guilty, and certainly these are all allegations. But what is the type of person that would watch that emotional video of Savannah Guthrie and her siblings and then try and take advantage of them? It just blows your mind. Law enforcement does make it clear, though, in the criminal complaint that we have, quote, the 2 text messages have not been linked to the February 2nd, 2026 ransom demand, end quote. So the FBI saying this.
So this is the person that got caught. So they got caught. Oh, did you send the Bitcoin? Did you send it yet? That's the guy that got caught and got a $20,000 bond, of which you only need to pay $2,000.
Person is just someone who is trying to take advantage of this family. This is not someone who is actually, they believe, connected to the kidnapping of Nancy Guthrie. Joining us now to talk more about this case is retired police commander Mike King, host of Profiling.
Aha! I interviewed Mike King about a couple weeks ago now. So check out that interview I did with him. He is the host of Profiling Evil and is the author of Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. Great book. But he's the one who talked about Danny Troyer, the person that SAs and kills the elderly. That was his thing. So watch that interview to learn more about that.
Evil. And we'll talk a little bit more about the project that you have that just came out this week. You look at these ransom notes, and I kind of want to walk through what we know, because it seems like you have pieces of information from law enforcement. TMZ says they have it, and there's information coming out there. 2 deadlines. One of them we've passed, which was 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Thursday. But then there's the second deadline that TMZ says is more concerning, set for Monday. How common is it that a ransom note would have 2 deadlines?
You know, it's not uncommon that it might go to multiple locations. I think back to some of the big cases over time where the Unabomber, for instance, how he sent out to multiple agencies his manifesto and his demands. But the thing that I think is so intriguing is we really don't know, Chris, with this indication that we've got.
Time out. Caroline, thank you very much, Caroline. Please hit like. We need Jared. Shows are not sustainable without viewer support. This is very true, Caroline. Thank you very much. Likes are free.
Got in the most recent press conference yesterday about an individual being arrested for trying to capitalize on those ransom notes and trying to get money himself. I don't know if that's one of those 2 letters or if there were 3 ransom letters and that they've determined. So we have to start thinking, have they already offloaded one of those 2 and it really was one official ransom email that went to multiple locations, and this guy jumped on it and became letter number 2, or if there are 3 or more. And that really becomes intriguing. But what it does is it tells us we have to understand what the content of the letters or the emails is. Are they consistent with one another, or is there somebody that's just making some really good, complicated guesses? And, you know, we've heard arguments about the Apple Watch being seen in photographs and other things where people can theorize. You could look on Google and theorize things about the residents. So it's pretty easy to make it appear like you might have a little more information. Kind of the old Roma trick of the gypsies when they would learn as much as they could about someone before having visions and projecting what they knew about them.
Yeah. And so it's, you know, and I think too with the Guthrie, the first Instagram video that went out on Savannah Guthrie's Instagram Wednesday night, and it's the 3 siblings. And because TMZ had reported they get this ransom note, and at the time you're like, well, you know, is that something the FBI and are they really taking seriously? And then they, you know, talk about this alleged note, and it's unclear whether they got something separate from what TMZ says that they have, or the 2 TV stations. But Savannah Guthrie talks about AI, images, voice, and I don't know if that's a message out saying, hey, if there's going to be proof of life, we understand that AI is different and we need some sort of proof. But also the FBI has said, and they said it was uncommon, that there's been zero communication. This letter goes out, whatever the Guthrie family received, whether it was the same as TMZ or it was just, it went to TMZ first and the 2 TV stations, and then brought to the Guthrie family, whatever it is, there hasn't been any other communication since. In cases like this, even with someone who appears to be, there's no DNA left at the scene, someone who really thought this out. I mean, how?
And again, if you saw the video that Savannah, Cameron, and Annie put out today, Savannah's demeanor is much different than the original one. She's devastated in the original one, really sorrow and full of grief. This one, she's more calm. And I don't know if it's more just kind of hardening up to it, like, like bracing yourself for the worst. I really don't know.
How common is it that there's just radio silence after a note like this is sent out?
I'm finding that to be really troubling, and I hope it's not an indicator that, for instance, Nancy has passed away and that they're now thinking, I don't have a bargaining chip, and they're trying to just minimize their impact on this thing, or if there's something more to it. I've heard a lot of people chatting in social media about the fact that the initial plea from the family went through Instagram. Well, holy cow, Savannah has a huge Instagram following. That makes really good sense to me. But also, if somebody's involved in things like blockchain financial transactions, and they're using this cyber track to get money, that might be a younger group who might be more attuned to Instagram rather than Facebook or some of these other platforms. So I think it starts to tell us a little bit about the kind of individual that they're focusing on from a behavioral perspective. Not that they have identified anyone, and I'm so grateful that, frankly, that they haven't said this person is a person of interest yet, because in this day and age, that is just so damaging to people when they're being kind of filtered out or focused more tightly on. So as I think about all those things, Chris, I guess what I do is I just keep getting more and more questions. I don't know if that's helpful or not.
So Mike King just said that he didn't think it was helpful to say they have a person of interest. Interesting.
But it does drive me a little closer to the idea of, is it someone who's technologically savvy? Is it someone who might be younger than my age group, for instance, and certainly Nancy's age group? And more importantly, did something happen in the course of this crime that changed everything, like Nancy dying? And if that were the case, all of a sudden the bargaining chip is gone, and you're thinking, how am I going to avoid going to prison for this?
And there are so many questions, and I get that law enforcement, the FBI, the local sheriff office, they're trying to give information but also be vague at the same time, and that's just the nature of these things. When it comes to, because I know TMZ said that theirs was an email, and I believe to the local TV stations it was as well, and that seems to be the specific one, or at least what law enforcement is talking about. That one message that goes out. And I think of the imposter, who apparently is just some guy who had nothing to do with this, who was just trying to capitalize on it. And it seems pretty quickly, reading to the criminal complaint, that the FBI, whatever technology he used, low-level stuff, that they pretty quickly found out it was him, and then they sent a SWAT team to his house in California. In this case, we don't know what they know about where this email came from. I mean, what is the type of software that someone might need to have to be able to hide from the FBI as far as where that email came from?
Very good question by Chris Stewart here. So perhaps a VPN is necessary, and what other kinds of things to be anonymous? Let's see what Mike King says.
Yeah, this is not an area that I'm really strong in, other than for about 14 months, I did some contract work for a company that dealt with intel gathering from the deep, dark, and surface web. And the one thing that I learned through the course.
So what you would need to do is talk to a tech person. You talk to a tech person, they're going to know the answer to this.
Of that year plus of time with those really smart people,
is that you can spoof your email address and you can move things around. So it is really difficult. The old days of just going to an IP address might work with guys like me, maybe you, but a lot of people are going to libraries or other places to send off information. I think what we do know and that we can kind of bank on is that they have determined that the wallet where the cyber money was intended to be delivered to is an actual wallet, whether that then can be tied back to an individual that they can point and put a finger on is another question. But this really points to how powerful forensics have become in these kinds of investigations. And this is one where, boy, we can't wait much longer.
Yeah, and I don't know, but you certainly 14 months in that is a lot, 14 months more than I do in terms of understanding how these things work. But it's like, because I look at this and it's like, I know that they are able to, if there is a hack, they can trace it to North Korea. Like how, what's the technology out there that if this is a real ransom note, who is this group of people or one person that has the ability? And maybe the FBI, we've seen a lot of cases where they're saying one thing publicly, but they have a lot going on behind the scenes and there's a lot of media attention. They probably would like to be able to do some things out of the public eye in this. So we'll see, hopefully at the end that there's a happy resolution and we can, kind of see how things played out. It did seem clear in the news conference that they have DNA from Nancy and there was blood on the front of the house. Other than that, it doesn't seem like, at least from what the sheriff has said, that they have DNA related to anything else. And then he goes through this timeline and it's the doorbell camera's missing. And then it happens to be that her, whatever other software was on the home can just detect motion, but not video. And then we know that she had a pacemaker and then that pacemaker disconnects. And then it doesn't seem like they have DNA related to this, whoever would have done this. And it's like, I know, and I hate doing the cliche of like, oh, in the movies, but it's like when someone says this person's a pro, they know what they're doing. Like in reality, who is really out there that has done this before and would think this through? I mean, how common is it to have a criminal who is actually that smart to be able to cover their tracks as well? At least at this point, it seems like this person did.
Yeah, the investigator in me wants to look at things in buckets and then try to pull the thread on each bucket. So when I think about the possibility of this being an organized offender who walks through the door and commits this crime, there are boxes you can check off.
So by the way, this guy's name is Mike King. He's the author of Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. He's a former police officer. He is the host of the channel Profiling Evil. And I interviewed him about his book, Wolves in Sheep's Clothing. He's interviewed many serial killers, including Danny Troyer. He's the person that was into elderly ladies and would essay and murder them in their home. And then he would dress them in their pajamas and put them back in bed. So it would make it seem like they just died in their sleep because he would strangle them. Also, we talked about the BTK killer. We talked about the 10-year-old girl from England who killed toddlers. That's a true story. So we had a fascinating discussion. Check that out.
That they take the Ring camera or whatever camera it was. I don't know. Maybe it was a Ring camera. It looked almost like a Google camera from the frame that's left on the door, but that doesn't matter. They took that. That somehow they were either lucky enough or they knew that video was going to cycle through. But I don't see an organized offender if they knew that the internal video system was working and would even cycle through, that they would take the risk of someone not discovering that she was gone before that 8-hour loop disappeared. So that pushes me away from maybe organization. If they knew the camera was there, they may have just focused on the exterior camera and got rid of that. But most people, especially with Ring, I don't think you can have a Ring camera anymore without it being connected to a service. So they're taking a great deal of risk, which means if they were...
It's a Nest camera. It's not a Ring camera. It's a Nest camera.
Were organized, they would come in and be masked up and they would be in a position that they wouldn't be identifiable. But those kinds of things are the things that I start looking at when I think about an organized offender. And I know a lot of people are saying this all points to an organized offender. It may not be. It may be some guy who glumped along and burglarized and things fell apart and he found a way to get out. That he might be able to get a ransom, or he might be able to get more out of this. So I keep going to the bucket too that says this is a disorganized guy who came in, and I don't hear anybody talking about, for instance, we look at the blood on the porch, but I don't know if you've looked closely at the debris field in the porch and the flowers that are there. And it appears that it was kicked into the porch area from that pot. So is it possible that there was a con approach used, that somebody went and rang that doorbell and said even something as crazy as, hey, it's the police department, I need to check on you and make sure you're fine, because somehow that door got open. So either a predator got inside the home through another way, and then they exited the home with Nancy and through that door, and then something cataclysmic happened on the porch that caused that blood, or that was the actual initial contact spot where somebody used a con approach and got her to peek open the door and look out. And we saw that recently with the elected officials in up near the Great Lakes.
And it's very possible that someone who did this knew she didn't have a subscription. So they knew to take advantage of the fact that Nest camera was not going to save anything. Very possible.
That were killed a year ago, I think it was, where they were conned to open the door thinking it was a police officer outside. And I think you and I actually covered that case together.
In Minnesota, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. And so you think, well, what would explain these kinds of behaviors? And I don't hear people talking about that. What was somebody hiding by that pot? And then when she came to the door and peeked open, and as they reached out to grab her and pull her through, that created the debris field, and that created the assault that caused the bleeding on the porch area. So there are just so many things. And so you ask what I think as an investigator, I just have like 10 boxes on my whiteboard in my office here that I'm just writing stuff that I keep thinking, okay, this makes it seem more organized, but this makes it look disorganized. And the cool thing about that, Chris, is that statistically, a disorganized offender will not become organized as the crime goes on, but an organized offender could walk through the door with a perfect plan and everything could start to fall apart.
Well, because I think too, like to your point, where there's certain parts of the story that you could look at through the lens of this being someone who is so calculated and so meticulous in the way they did it, right? Like she has this pacemaker, but then the pacemaker disconnects. And then maybe that's because it disconnects from the phone because it's from the distance and they leave the phone behind. But they made sure that the phone would be left behind knowing that a person wouldn't follow them. And then it's like the Ring doorbell camera. They take the camera down. You look at that and it's like, is this someone who would have known that she had a pacemaker, would have known about the Ring doorbell camera? Or, and sadly, it's like, did they luck out in the sense that the pacemaker disconnects from the phone and they didn't know she had a pacemaker? And then the Ring doorbell camera, they're just kind of brazen and they take it, not thinking that, well, a Ring doorbell camera usually records. I know they said yesterday there's something about like the subscription she had where it like cycles through and it's not up in the cloud. And maybe that's just luck for this person. So it's like, there's two ways, you could look at them from the lens of both sides of like, this is someone who is just brazen, or this is someone who knew exactly what they were doing. When you look
Chris,
at,
let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. If you put your mind and your thoughts and your feelings into being the predator, and you went there knowing that Ring doorbell was going to cycle through in an hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, and erase itself, would you still take the risk of leaving it sitting there? If that were the case, and I don't think that an organized criminal would take that risk. And you talk about that the pacemaker being connected to her mobile device, and her phone apparently is in the car. You have to ask yourself questions from a behavioral standpoint of, wait a minute, why is that phone in the car? Did she have that phone when she went to her daughter's house for dinner for those 4 or 5 hours? If she did have the phone, then what action occurred?
So if people think this is a cartel kidnapping, what's the cartel's motive? Just money? What else would it be?
To get that phone in the car rather than right in the house where she walked in when she came home at 10 p.m. And so you start asking those kinds of questions and you have to try to resolve those. And hopefully the telemetrics off the phone will tell us more.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because it just seems, and again, I think of cases. I mean, we've been covering the case of Spencer and Monique Tepe in Ohio recently, and then I even think back to the Koberger case, and it's like, in both of them, police were saying one thing publicly, and then after the fact, when the arrest is made, you realize that they were actually very close to solving the crime a lot sooner than everybody thought. Of course, in the case of Dr. Michael McKee, it's all alleged at this point, but I remember the day before the arrest, or 2 days before, the police chief was on camera saying, I have no, we don't have a suspect at this point. And then you look now with the information coming out, they actually very much did. Just lastly,
time out with this. Stupid thing wouldn't work. Thank you very much, Caroline. How many of us black sheep are thankful for Jared? Please hit like if you feel gratitude too. Thank you very much, Caroline. Likes are free. And we have a great flock of black sheep here. I go live almost every night and talk about true crime, current events, and I use my experience and knowledge about narcissism, mental health, and addiction, and I apply them to those things. So if that sounds interesting, make sure you subscribe.
Mike, because I think too, like, the big question of like, why? This is an 84-year-old woman. Yes, I understand, like, she has a famous and frankly wealthy daughter, but at the same time she has health issues, and it's like, why would a kidnapper, I guess, and I know, like, that's the big question we're all trying to answer, but it's like, why would a kidnapper take someone who health-wise was so vulnerable?
Yeah, I guess we would have to try to guess whether they actually thought through that part of the scenario. So we have to think about who is the victim and why did she become a victim? Did Nancy become a victim because Nancy had something that they could profit from? And as an 84-year-old that doesn't get to take her phone, didn't take her wallet, you start thinking, well, there's not financial reasons why Nancy could solve a problem for a predator. So then you have to think about, is it something where she's being used as leverage to get to a greater pocket of money, like potentially the family members who could step in and offer that up? And so, again, these cases, we want them to be easy, but it really, I think is always the thing that was so exciting to me about an investigation was we don't have to immediately know all the answers, but what we do have to know are what the facts are telling us, because the facts will point to the truth.
And hopefully we'll get some good news on this case sometime soon. Mike King, it's always great to have you on Law and Crime, host of Profiling Evil. You have a new podcast that just came out this week, Gardens of Evil, Inside the Zion Society Cult. Where can people find it? What do people need to know about it?
And he mentioned this on mine too, the new podcast that he has.
Any podcast platform you listen to, folks, you can go to, and this thing will be on there. It is the story of my book, Deceived, the investigative memoir of the Zion Society Cult. And the thing that is so cool about this podcast, Chris, is it took us 2 years to go through and produce this thing. And we have many of the survivors who are now 45, 50-year-old women. We have police officers who were there on the day of the raid. We have the prosecutors. We have victim advocate workers. And we have all of these people participating in talking about the case and going through what their recollections were at the time. But most importantly, we also discovered some things along the way that we never knew had happened and that I missed completely in the investigation. So it is such a cool podcast, folks. Please get it. Gardens of Evil, Inside the Zion Society Cult.
Yeah, great podcast to check out. Mike King, retired police commander, the host of Profiling Evil. It is always great to have you on Law and Crime. Thanks for talking about this case with us.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, before we go, want to put these numbers back on the screen. Once again, if you're watching this and you know any information on Nancy Guthrie and where she is.
So any of my viewers, they're out in Arizona. I know there's some in Tucson. Pay attention to this.
Who allegedly took her. Contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department or the FBI. For Pima County, 520-351-4900 is the number. You can remain anonymous. And for the FBI, 1-800-CALL-FBI is the number for them. Or you can go to tips.fbi.gov, and there you can remain anonymous as well. That will do it for On the Case, presented by Law and Crime. Subscribe to us on YouTube and Spotify, and now you can find episodes of On the Case on Peacock. I'm Chris Stewart. We'll see you next time.
Law and Crime Network, I really like them. I think they do good work. Now, I don't know what else we should even watch. That might be the end. We've been here for over 3 hours already. What was I going to say? But went over the new things that Brian Entin did. So agents went to the house, but then they took pictures. People had blue gloves when they came out, and that's really it. Oh, the cartels. That's what I was going to say. So in terms of the cartels, there is a professional kidnapping business in Mexico. Now, would they come over across the border to do it in America? More risky for sure to do that, but you would do that if what? High risk, high reward? Is capturing someone like her maybe a high reward? Maybe. But that does happen. So the viewer in the chat that said that, they are very correct. That does happen in Mexico all the time. Because it's just a business. You capture them, get a ransom, give them back. And what's the average person going to do to the cartel? Nothing. They'll kill you. So cartels, they run a lot of the areas down there. Mexico can be a fairly corrupt place. I like Brian Entin's part of the A-team, Lauren. Lauren, Brian, and Maureen, A-team. So I go to them. I trust them first and foremost. Law and Crime Network, I don't mind them either. I like them. They've never steered me wrong. We'll watch Ashleigh Banfield. I like Ashleigh Banfield. Did they say her phone was in her car if Nancy took an Uber? I did not hear that if they did. No one said everyone in Mexico, Keeman. Yeah, Jesse does good too. I saw him do something about the Epstein files. I was thinking about going over that the other day. A lot of people advertising that channel here. Ashley is right. Tommaso is going to be arrested tomorrow. That would be huge breaking news if so. Huge breaking news. While you're all still here, sorry, I don't know why you keep on saying all these things in all capital letters. I don't know who these people are. But if you're still here, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. That's also true. Cartels aren't stupid. Also true. My name and page. My name is Jared, and I am the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect on YouTube. Jared Mello on Facebook. Wizard of Radical Self-Respect on Instagram. Revenge of the Black Sheep on TikTok. But I also consider myself the shepherd of black sheep. No, I will not be going live tomorrow unless there's something massive that happens. In which case, I'll have to pull up Brian Entin and do it on my phone because I'm not going to be bringing my laptop with me. So Lisa will like this. JLR is always in the way, plus he hasn't paid his dues, in my opinion, plus disrespectful to the other media on these locations, I think. Well, I'm not sure if that's true, but I'll take your word for it. Now, you might go into true crime withdrawal tomorrow because of the Super Bowl. I was seeing my little brother in Almost Heaven, West Virginia. Of course this is live, Living. You know that. Thank you, Valerie. Well, I also talk about narcissism, talk about mental health and addiction sometimes too, and I interview a lot of people. I interview licensed professionals like Dr. Peter Salerno, those of you who know him. He's, when he comes on the show, people like that. I interview people about autism, CPTSD, other true crime peeps. We're really everything. I mean, I've gone over some current events and political stuff, which doesn't make me many friends, but sometimes I'll talk about it. Thank you, Jolly. And thank you, Lisa. But it's been pretty awesome to see all the new amount of people in here. From the wee small numbers to this is pretty cool. And to reiterate the thumbnail of this, basically Savannah, Cameron, and Anne were saying they want her to return home, but they were talking about a celebration of life. They weren't talking like proof of life. So some people are saying that means she might be gone. And maybe what people don't say can be speak pretty loudly. No one has mentioned the dog. Does she even have one? Did someone say she died? The dog died not that long ago? I thought that's what I heard. Shannon and Livin are going to do the live for me? Oh my goodness. Yeah, I like them too, Caroline. They make the kids in West Virginia, they sing it in kindergarten. They make them learn the words. I went to school in West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, WVU, where greatness is learned and couches are burned. Caregiver believes there'll be an arrest by Monday, and maybe there will. Maybe there will. Only funny looking, Lisa. That's all I am. Funny looking. They will get this person. FBI does not give up. Yeah, no, the FBI is not going to give up. I mean, they're crossing their T's and dotting their I's over there. Have a good night, Livin. Gypsy, wow, it's meant to be that I found your channel. I know and have experienced quite a lot with narcissists. How about that, Gypsy? I've got countless shorts on it. I have some longer form stuff too. But I also interviewed a lot of experts on narcissism too. Dr. Peter Salerno, Dr. Jamie Zuckerman, Dr. Z. She makes guest appearances on Fox. Who else? The wife of the Wolf of Wall Street, Dr. Nay. We interviewed her on the channel. She's got a cool story. Who else? Marcella. For you Instagram peeps beyond the bruise, Marcella, I've interviewed her a couple times. I've interviewed my friend P-Dubs, Kelly Conrad. She's on Tickety Talk. You know, I really don't know, Cher. I don't know if they're going to be involved or not. I think they most likely are in some way, but we'll see. But also a psych major in addition to hundreds of hours of research and personal. There you go. Personal experience, you'll learn the most from personal experience. Because, I mean, I've dealt with it in romantic relationships and family. And you just can't teach that. You can read about these things in a textbook, but it's just not the same. Not the same. Harassing me for likes. I'll allow that. I'll allow it, Livin. For more likes, I'll allow it. All right. Yes, for sure. The pain becomes your motivation. And if you take away the pain, you'll forget the lessons you learned, or you'll not get the lessons you learned. So that's how I see it. I try to remember in everything that happens, there's something to learn and an opportunity. Never forget that. And I wouldn't say that necessarily to someone who had just had something terrible happen to them. But over time, there comes a point where I would say, yeah, there's something to learn here. There's an opportunity here. You did, Lisa? I didn't make it out alive. I got taken off to rehab first. I graduated from Stockton. A lot of boozing out there in WVU. I might talk about some Epstein. I mean, I was thinking about doing that yesterday, but I talked about this instead. But it will certainly make people will get mad, probably. You know, here's my take. If it's not involving the son-in-law, if it's not involving him, Tommaso, I don't know if they're going to solve it, honestly, because like that's their lead. If it is indeed a lead, Ashleigh Banfied said it is. But if it's not him and not Annie, it's a stone cold whodunit, and I don't think it's going to be solved. So that's what I think. But what do you think, chap? The University of Arizona. I like that. The dry heat. And love hurts too, Canada. But if it's him, if it's Tommaso, I think they'll probably be able to solve it. If it's not him, I mean, who would even be a suspect if it's not him? Would it be someone that he hired? That's the other option, right? So if it's not him, it's somebody, but that would still be him. If he hired someone, he's just as guilty as the people he hired. And notice no one said a word about where he is. Where is he? Is he at the hotel with them all? It'd be good to know. Why is no one asking that question? The sheriff like, oh, where is he? Where is he right now? Yeah, and hit that notification bell. Although I'm usually live 10 p.m. Eastern. Right, Caroline? I mean, I saw someone post a picture from the New York Post that said Annie and Tommaso were in the car somewhere. And I was like, well, where the hell is that? She could be. I mean, with each passing day without her medicine, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. Now, I don't think Russia or Israel are involved in this, actually. There's other things they're involved in, but not this. Maybe. I mean, that might be, Hey Jude. Hey Jude. The Beatles song. I don't know. He probably wouldn't outsource it to his bandmates, though. If you're going to do something like that, wouldn't you outsource it to professionals? Although that crime scene doesn't really seem like professionals. Oh, you did? I believe it. A lot of us hooligans went to WVU. Then more likely she could be alive if they have her medication, but again, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe it's more about revenge and they wanted just to kill her. Well, unfortunately, not everyone can go search for the sex trafficked children. Some of us have to work. Are you going to pay me, Lisa, to go search for the sex trafficked children? My fee will be $3,000 a day. I'll go search for them for $3,000 a day. You going to pay? And again, it's possible they found her medication somewhere else too. All right, Jolly, you have a good night. Tim, you have a good night. And I'm going to wrap it up here too because I'm getting tired. I did go to WVU for a year and a half, but I left because I was a bad boy and I had to go to rehab. And that's why I say the joke, have you even lived if you haven't disappointed your entire family by the time you're 19? But I made it out alive. Made it out alive and I had a lot of stories to tell because of it. So I have a lot of experience with that stuff. Have a good night, Brenda. Would be hard to be both looking after your 84 more captor. Yeah, it would be. You're right, Canada. That's a good question, Lisa. I don't know if there are any nurses or caregivers coming out of the house, though. I don't know if she had one. But it's given me experience to share with you all, Brian. I've been through all sorts of addictions and mental health thing and probably on the autistic spectrum. But that's what you get here. You get a unique mix That's why I'm on the shepherd of black sheep. And that's why there's a great flock of black sheep here too. But all right, everybody, I'm running out of social battery. So I will not see you tomorrow unless something wild happens, but you'll see me on Monday night. So again, remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already. Comment some of your thoughts on the main video too, once this ends. Thank you, Livin. You've been a great help, and so is Shannon, and so is Songbits. And with that, everyone should have a great rest of their night. You have a good one, Jason. You have a good one, Heather. Thanks for all the super chats. Caroline, Danielle, Tigress. Have a good night, Brian. I'm the best clown you know, though. Why are you coming to the circus if I'm a clown, they say. And go Pats. Go Patriots. What would I do if it was my mother? I mean, I would do something about it. I would try if it's my mother. But you can't do that for everyone else's mother. Yeah, true. Good night, Danielle. You have a good one.